If you're speaking, I can't hear you. Ahoy. Okay, I will say this and type it, since I don't know if you could hear me or read me.
Hello, welcome to Sacerdotus Hangouts. Tonight we're having Atheist Open Mic, and have the honor to introduce Seth McMullen, who's an atheist. He's in his 20s and is from Los Angeles, California. And I'm hoping he could hear me because I'm having technical difficulties. I'm not hearing anything from him.
I can
Hello?
hear you fine now.
Say that one more time. I heard something, but
I can hear you fine now.
okay, there we go. So, what's up? How was your day today?
My day was fine. If you'll excuse me, I'm actually going to get a lighter. I left it in my room. 1 second.
No problem.
So, where do you want to start?
Okay, you're back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. I don't know. Technology never seems to work for me for some reason. I try to get this organized. I'm trying to get the sharing thing up, but it just keeps flickering here. I don't know what's wrong with it. So anyhow, what's on your mind? Did you hear about the atheist blogger that was killed? I believe this week or last week.
Was that the one was it Bangladesh?
Yeah,
Yeah, I heard something
they
about
went.
it.
Yeah, they went to his house on these Islamists, they say, and they pretended to be renters looking to seek an apartment and whatnot, and then they just hacked them to death. So
Sounds pretty terrible.
yeah, it's crazy. And I wrote a short post on it on my site, and started to promote it, and ironically, I was getting attacked by it by some Christians of all people. A couple of them were upset, saying that why am I even posting or giving attention to it? And I told them, well, I mean, he was a human being. Just because he was an atheist doesn't mean I have to hate him or ignore him or celebrate his death. I mean, we have to, because for some reason, like Christians and other religious groups tend to feel like they're the only ones being persecuted in the world. And I disagree with that, because obviously there's other people out there that are going through a lot of things. Not too much attention is given to them, which is sad. And this guy, have it, if I wasn't on Twitter looking up tweets and on my mentions, people that send me mentions, I would have noticed this news, because CNN, Fox, all these other networks didn't mention it at all. So I find that unfortunate that these atheists out there in the world are getting persecuted too, along with Christians and even other Muslims. And the media is quiet on it. And even Richard Dawkins, I haven't heard him say anything on it, or Krause, or any of them. They just are in their own cloud there and don't really speak up about these bloggers, especially bloggers, because they tend to be bloggers. They get attacked, killed. A couple months ago, I think it was in April, one blogger was walking with his wife and they hacked him to death, him and his wife. I think his wife survived, but she lost her fingers. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, my thoughts on that are that I'm not really concerned with Dawkins speaking out on the behalf of atheists, because Dawkins isn't my pope. There are other atheist media groups that are speaking out about it. They're just doing a story on it on Dogma Debate. I was just listening to a second ago on Secular News Network, or Secular News and Media is what it's called. I'm sure, I'm absolutely positive, with no doubt in my mind, that Cognitive Dissidents will talk about it. Ask an Atheist podcast will talk about it, and the Scathing Atheist podcast will talk about it.
Yeah, well, hopefully, because not too much awareness is given to it. And the reason why I mentioned Dawkins is because he has, in a sense, presented himself almost like the Pope of atheism, because he's all out there, the spokesman of atheism and whatnot. And I don't know, it just seems to me like he's hypocritical. He's just using atheism to profit from it. That's what it seems. And he doesn't really call to mind the things that go on with atheism and whatnot, if he is in fact trying to promote it more in society. But I don't know, he just goes around, books these events, charge $250 to get in, and then starts spewing his own diatribe against religion and God and whatnot, and then that's it. It's just it's unfortunate. If he uses celebrity to speak out on it, and I understand there's podcasts out there and blogs and whatnot, but that can only do but so much. I mean, if many of these podcasters and bloggers don't get airtime on CNN and all these networks, but he does. I feel he should go out there and speak on this, because clearly it's getting ugly out there. And like I said before, naturally atheists and Christians, we disagree on things, but we shouldn't celebrate their deaths or see them as some kind of pestilence that needs to be eradicated, because we're all human beings and we have to care for one another. It's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I certainly take no joy in when ISIS beheads some Christians in a propaganda video. It's sick, no matter who it is that they're beheading. I mean, other Muslims, moderates, Christians, atheists. That seems pretty non-controversial, that it's bad when extremists kill other people.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, but Also, Obama, he doesn't really do anything about it. He seems to be protecting Muslims. Not that I'm siding with right wing people or not, because they tend to be a little bit loony, but he really doesn't want to like say that these are Islamic radicals and whatnot. And
Neither
just
did neither
when
did
was it?
Bush.
I think it was the prayer breakfast. I think it was that he was actually
It's
blaming Christians. He said something about the Crusades. I can't remember what it was.
this
And
is
pretty
this is
much
common
giving
tact.
a free pass to the Muslims.
It's common tact in everyone in national politics to not blame a whole religion or culture on the brutal acts of some people of that culture, group, or religion. People like to bring up Obama, saying Obama says that Islam isn't responsible for these deaths. These individual people are responsible for these deaths. That Islam is a religion of peace. But you know who said Islam is a religion of peace before Obama did? And shortly after I think it was after the 9/11 attack, shortly after, it was President Bush, George W.
Yeah, true. But with George W. Bush, I do recall that he said that uh, these terrorists are a group that hijacked Islam for their own purposes. So
Yeah,
he made a distinction between the religion and these crazy people that just are using the religion and the name of Allah to do these crazy things.
yeah, and I
So
see no difference between
hopefully
how
Obama
Bush.
will do the same thing. Make that distinction. Yes, it's Islam. Not every Muslim is crazy and fanatical, but there's this small faction that uses Islam to promote its ideas of hate and try to kill people, behead them, fly planes into buildings, whatever. And, but he doesn't tend to do that, and I think if he would do that, it really wake people up, because right now in America we see all these people, namely Republicans, right wing conservatives, and whatnot. They seem to see Islam as this evil thing, and they fight with me all the time on Twitter. They criticize me whenever I say, we have to pray for one another, and or if I tweet something to the effect that not all Muslims are bad and whatnot, then I get all these hate tweets attacking me for that. And I believe that's because the distinction is not made between the two groups. Islam as a whole, 1 billion members or whatever it is, and then this small faction of ISIS and Al Qaeda and all these other lunatics out there that claim to be Muslim and just do these crazy things. Because the things that they do, I mean, I read the Quran, and the Quran does have interesting passages, just like the Bible does. But and you read them in context of the time and the place and the history, the culture, you see where the author was coming from. But these people, especially ISIS, they get all these ideas that are not even part of Islam. Yeah, so many people adopt it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I see these young guys on the news recently. The Cuban in Florida, they arrested him. He was plotting something, and I wonder what is it that attracts these people to it. Because if they were Muslims, they would know the faith. One of the things about Islam is that they're required to memorize the Quran. And I mean, if you memorize a book of your religion, your faith, you should know what it says. How can you come out of nowhere and be convinced by this guy and thousands of miles away telling you that this specific country or these specific people are your enemies, and you quickly jump to it and believe it? Or the idea that there's, what is it, 72 virgins or something waiting for you in heaven, something like that? That's not even part of Islam. I have no idea where they got that from. And I asked imams and people from the Muslim faith, and they told me that's not part of Islam at all. Yet these guys, they hear these things and they quickly believe it. When they blow themselves up or shot somebody's head off or crash a plane into a building, that there's going to be these 72 virgins up there in heaven. And it's just completely contradictory to what the Quran actually says. And I'm not an expert in Islam. I just know from what I read and what the questions that I asked of Muslims. But I just find that interesting. It's more like a psychological thing. They get brainwashed into thinking that this is what Islam is supposed to be, Muslim or not. And I suppose the same thing happens with Christianity, especially with not necessarily with Catholics, unless you want to name the the Irish, the northern part of Ireland. They're always at war with the Protestants, but then we have the Protestant Christians who claim to be pro-life. They claim to be against abortion and whatnot, but yet they support the death penalty. And I've always had a problem with that. I mean, how can you be pro-life yet you're celebrating and pushing for the death penalty? It's just contradictory. And also the ones that go after abortionists who blow them up in their clinics and whatnot. I mean, how can you,
or shoot them in a church,
love one another as yourself, and then you go and you kill this doctor and abortionist? Granted, you believe that he's doing something wrong, yes, but I mean, aren't you doing the same thing he's doing? I mean, he's killing unborn children. You're killing him or her. So I think it's not, atheists tend to blame the religion for this. I've seen this a lot pattern. And also during my time as an atheist, we always saw that it was the religion that did it. Religion causes evil or brings evil. Dawkins says the same thing, but when you really look at the things case by case, it really doesn't have anything to do with the religion itself. It's the people that seem to get all these kinds of crazy interpretations and carry out the religion in a way that it's not supposed to be carried out. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I generally think that that Dostoevsky had it completely backwards. That it's not that without God all things are permissible. I think it's with God all things are permissible. Without God, if everyone has, at least at base, fairly universal values. They want to live, and they want their freedom to be respected, and to do so, if you really respect that and you're rational, then you would respect other people's freedoms and right to life. So, but with God, if God is real, right? If theism is true, and God is the source of what is good, then if God wants you to do something, then that is automatically good. Meaning that if theism is true, all things are permissible. If God wants you to walk into a church and shoot George Tiller because he's killing babies, then that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but well, that's a little bit tricky because I can only speak from the Catholic perspective. I can't really speak from Protestants. I mean, I was hoping Protestants would join on this or whatnot, or even Muslims would join on this. But
I can get
from the
Protestants.
Catholic perspective, God, we believe that God cannot contradict himself because truth cannot contradict truth. So if somebody claims that God told them to kill abortionists XYZ or behead a atheist or somebody else from another faith, then technically that command was not from God because God cannot contradict himself. Now there's questions, there's moments where God does test people, but I don't see, in regards to Abraham and Isaac sacrificing the son and so forth, but that incident in the Bible was meant to be a foretelling of the Father giving the Son Jesus on the cross. That was the whole purpose of that test, of foretelling that the Father is going to give the Son Jesus to die for the world. It wasn't that God wanted Abraham to literally kill Isaac. It was just a test. But again, the whole story is meant to convey the message that God the Father is going to send the Son, the Lamb. That's why after the angel stops Abram from killing Isaac, God provides the sacrificial ram there to be sacrificed in place of Isaac, because that's the way the story is supposed to be understood. It's not that God is evil or not. And I know Kierkegaard and all these philosophers try to see all kinds of meanings behind it, and that's okay. I mean, it's good to think and philosophize or not, but the Bible is the Bible and it has its own meaning, centrality to it that we cannot change. I mean, you could get your own interpretation, but you have to let it speak by itself. So, in regards to God saying to kill someone and whatnot, I mean, if it's at odds with what He said before, then it doesn't make sense as it coming from God or being truthful, because again, truth cannot contradict truth. And this is why we don't see in these cases now. We don't see, even during Jesus' time, Jesus never said to anybody to kill somebody or tested anybody because there was no reason to. The
Right,
test was
but
already done for Abraham.
he does say to buy a sword, and if you don't have money to buy a sword, so sell your cloak and buy one.
What was it? You said that again?
Jesus at one point says to sell your cloak and buy a sword. He also says that I do not come to bring peace, but to bring the sword. There's certainly implications that Jesus, I mean, very literally saying that he's not here to bring peace.
Well, you have to understand what he's referring to. The peace that he's talking about is a spiritual peace. Because remember, Jesus wasn't a politician. He didn't come to run for office or to. If he was, he would have replaced Caesar and the Romans. He would have replaced it and started a church right there as the government back then. When he said those sayings about the sword, so he's speaking metaphorically that you have to be armed.
Sell your
with the word
cloak
of God.
and buy a sword is
Yeah.
a metaphor?
Sorry, say that again. For some reason, you keep getting cut off.
When he told the people right in front of him face to face to sell your cloak and buy a sword, that was metaphor.
Yeah, pretty much. He's giving the, because you have to remember, you have to put yourself in the time and the place, how the people understood things back then. And Jesus being God, and we believe he's God, he will speak to the people at their level, how they understood things. And these people were not heavily educated. They weren't PhD people. They were just tax collectors, farmers, servants from the Romans, whatever they were. So he spoke to them colloquially, how they understood things. And the sword, the imagery of a sword, is what comes to mind when you hear a sword: power, strength, control. So he uses these images that the people understand on the time understood as meaning something specific in order to convey the message.
What you're saying seems to. I don't want to be rude, but you seem to be arguing against your own position. These people were simple, and so Jesus spoke to them in complicated metaphors. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You would think that if these people were that simple, they wouldn't understand metaphors, and Jesus would speak to them plainly and literally.
Well, I mean, just because they weren't educated doesn't mean they wouldn't understand metaphors.
Right, but that's the argument. The argument you were making is
tell children nursery rhymes and they still understand.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But the argument you're making, or seem to be making, is that these people weren't that educated, so they wouldn't understand complicated concepts. And metaphors are certainly more complicated than plain literal speech.
Yeah, because again, they will understand what a sword is because they were under captivity. They saw the Romans with swords and spears. They understood that as a symbol of power, control. So you really need a master's degree to understand that. They will know that. And just like in today's world, if I was to use the example of a gun or a nuclear bomb, I mean, even in today's world now, Iran, the whole deal thing with nuclear power, whatever it is that they're discussing over there, the whole idea of having nuclear power is a sign that your nation is powerful. Just to mention a nuclear nation is pretty much a statement saying that your nation is powerful. It's a superpower just because it has nuclear weapons. Now, you don't need a PhD to know that. That's just the way human language works. And Chomsky could explain it better than I can, but that's just the way human language develops. We just associate certain words to certain things in human behavior, certain experiences, and we understand it that way. And I mean, it's really complicated because, again, I understand where you're coming from. There's a lot of things in the Bible that you're like, what? Wait a minute, what doesn't make sense? But you have to look at it into context. And that's one of the things that the atheists have to be careful with. And not just atheists, but also Christians, especially fundamentalists, evangelicals, Pentecostals, people like that, who tend to read the Bible literally and don't really look into the context and the meaning.
I'm
and
all for I'm all for the Bible having. I'm all for the Bible having metaphor, and I'm completely comfortable with lots of, especially, one of the best, I think, arguments for, Jesus being the Messiah is all of the supposed foretellings in the Old Testament. I can totally see the metaphor for Jesus in the Passover and in the binding of Isaac and in there's a couple other ones I can't think of right now, but I could totally see a metaphor in those things. I'm comfortable with it. What I don't see is when Jesus is speaking to people in front of him that you are saying were uneducated and would need to be spoken to in a way that they could understand it, why Jesus would speak in these complicated metaphors, how he doesn't literally mean to sell your cloak and buy a sword. He means to be prepared to gain power. That doesn't seem at all clear. That seems a lot less clear than even Nietzsche said in The Will to Power.
Yeah, because again, you have to remember that these were people that understood the Old Testament and they understood the symbolism behind the sword. That the sword was a sign of power, of authority. And you read in different passages in the Bible, especially in the book of Revelations, it describes angels holding a sword.
They didn't have
sword,
the book of Revelation
because
Jesus
that's the image
had
of power, of authority. And the sword, to them, and also to Christians today, is a symbol of the word.
Right, but they, of course, aren't going to notice any analogies to what Jesus is saying with the book of Revelations, because the book of Revelations was not available to them at the time.
No, I'm just saying right now, that's the reason why the book of Revelation uses that imagery, because it was already in their mind. They understood the sword as a symbol of God's word that cuts through the stony hearts of men, pretty much. So they understood this imagery. That's why the book of Revelation uses that kind of apocalyptic language, because it was already part of the Jewish culture.
It seems to me that being, as objective as I possibly can, that if I was a Jew who understood the Old Testament and all of the stories in the Old Testament, where in multiple stories God tells the nation of Israel to take slaves from the surrounding nation or to kill the Amalekites, that selling your cloak to buy a sword means just that, to be prepared to defend your nation and your faith and to go to war with Rome even.
Yeah, that's the reason why some people misunderstood and they thought that Jesus was supposed to be this warrior, when in fact he wasn't supposed to be. Because at the time there was different sects that were going around with all these different ideas about the Messiah. Some believed the Messiah was this warrior that was going to kill everybody and free the Jews and whatnot. So again, that's why Jesus spoke in these words, that they understood this imagery. But he came in a spiritual sense, not in a mundane sense. So naturally, some people get a different meaning out of it, and that's why he ended up getting crucified. And they released Barabbas, who was the instigator. And so even today, people will read the scriptures and get all kinds of ideas from certain passages. And again, this is a problem that happens to atheists a lot, and also other Christians. And we call it presentism. It's when we try to apply today's understanding on the people of the past. And when we do that, then we come up with all these accusations that these people were evil and the Bible was evil and Americans were evil because they have racism, slavery and whatnot. But when you start looking at these events, these people, through their own eyes, their experience, try to understand what they were going through, the scenario, how they expressed themselves back then, the colloquialisms, the slang, if you will, whatever they used back then the picture starts coming. It makes more sense, and you start to understand it. Yes, it was crazy, some of the things that's mentioned in the Bible and also in American history. But when you look at it in their point of view, then you understand why these things happen, why the words were said, why they were said in a certain way, and it makes more sense. And then you figure out how to apply it in today's world. So that's pretty much, and I try to explain that a lot to atheists and like I said, other Christians, Baptists, evangelicals who tend to read, certain passages of the Bible and literally believe it in that sense. They don't take into account the context of it and the application of it back then. And in some cases, even the poetry behind it, they don't seem to understand it, and they come out with all kinds of conclusions about it. I try to recently there was a kid that came up to me, Jehovah's Witness, and he just started talking to me, pretty much tried to convert me, but that was a mistake. Anyhow, he just came out with all these Bible passages and whatnot. And for example, he said to me, what was it he was? About father. Because, Catholics call the Pope father. The Pope means Papa, father, and the priests are calling him father, whatnot. And there's a passage in the Gospel where Jesus said, don't call no man on earth father, because you only have one father. And so he was just trying to make this argument that, or you Catholics call priests father, so you're disobeying Christ, whatnot. So I tried to explain to him, well, look what's going on. Jesus is trying to teach the people. He's trying to convey the message that you have a father in heaven, God. God is your father. And remember, the Jews didn't like this idea. They thought this was idolatry. They thought this was blasphemy. I mean, how can you call God father? I mean, God is just a whole entity out there somewhere that's beyond humanity. How can you dare call this supreme being father? That's blasphemous. I mean, even Muslims today, they find that offensive. They don't dare call Allah father. They find it offensive. Yet here comes Jesus saying, you have Abba, daddy, in heaven. Which is funny because a lot of atheists like to use sky daddy. I mean, that's pretty much how Jesus described it back then. You have a sky daddy. You have a daddy in heaven that you could call on to, who's your father, who's your daddy. So he was trying to convey that message. It's not that he's saying that calling anybody on earth father was out of the question. You have to look into the context of it. And I tried to explain that to this kid, and he started to get it a little bit. And then I mentioned what Paul said later on, that I became your father because I taught you the word of God. I nourished you. I became like a father to you. So that's the reason why we call priest father, and the Pope is called Pope, Papa, and whatnot. So that's why atheists have to be careful whenever they look at the Bible. Whatnot, you can't read it like a newspaper, because if you do, you're either going to found a Christian sect, a crazy sect, and a cult, or you're going to become an atheist. One of those two things are going to happen if you read the Bible like it's a newspaper. You're either going to start a Westboro type crazy thing, or Jim Jones type crazy thing, or you're going to end up like Richard Dawkins or Hitchens or whoever. But again, if you read it in context, you have to try to understand the language. Even though that's another thing, the language is that unfortunately, we read the Bible in different languages today: English, Spanish, Italian, French, etc., etc. When you actually read the original languages, it's a lot different than what we see in the versions that we have now, based on the language that you know. And for example, one word in Hebrew or Aramaic or Greek, you could get like 10 different words in English just for it. That's why you see all these different versions out there of the Bible, because of the translation. And again, that's not the fault of the Bible. That's not the Bible's fault. That's just the way human language is. We tried our best to. This is why St. Jerome translated the Bible into Latin, because Latin is more centralized. It's easier to translate. It conveys the message better. And to this day, the Vatican, whenever it releases documents, it releases it in Latin for that very reason. Because Latin is clearer. It's to the point. There's no way you could get any other double meaning from specific words. What the word says, what the word means, that's what it is. You cannot get any other different words for it. You cannot get 5 different words for one word. But unfortunately, it's not the same with
Well,
Hebrew and Aramaic and all that. That's why we have King James, the
there
NIV,
are
the RSV, all these different
there are Latin words that
translations, and
there.
you read them and you, yeah, go ahead. What?
Well, actually, I don't know if this is actually Latin or Greek, but I can think of at least one word that has multiple meanings. But I don't want to speak it because I think it might actually be Greek. Yeah, it's Greek. Never mind.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, well, I mean, you would have read it. I probably wouldn't know what it is because I don't speak Greek. I mean, all I know is what I study about the scripture related. But from my own studies, I could tell you that that's pretty much the biggest problem that Bible scholars have is the translation. And again, a lot of atheists read the Bible in English and they get shocked by what they read. And again, this is not because it's the Bible's fault, it's just the way the words that we use to translate it. And it's very difficult to find the right word in English that matches the word in Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek in the original text. It's very difficult. The the Bible that comes close to the the original text is pretty much the RSV, the Revised Standard Version is the closest. The New American comes like second place. The Jerusalem third place comes uh, in how accurate it relates to the original text. But back to the confusion, atheists really have to really be careful whenever they pick up the Bible and try to read it or memorize certain passages to try to use it against Christians. Because most likely they're misinterpreting it. And again, it's not their fault. It's not their fault at all because Christians do it all the time. I mean, I met different Catholics who read different passages. I can't think of any right now. They read different passages and they just came out with all kinds of ideas about it. And I told them, "Did you actually read the whole chapter?" They said, "No." I mean, read the whole chapter. Read it from start to beginning, and you see why this guy said this thing. But if you just look up, okay, chapter this, verse this, and then you see a nice fancy sentence there, and then you just start shooting it out at people, you're gonna look like a moron because
In
you
my
have to look at the whole
experience,
context.
atheists are more often right than wrong when it comes to bringing up biblical passages out of context. A lot of times they're not out of context, and it's really easy to prove that they're in context, and that's simply ask the Christian how to put it back into context for them. And if they can't, it's probably proper context. And that happens a lot.
Yeah, because like I said, not all Christians are Bible scholars, so you can't expect every Christian to refute an atheist just like that. I mean, the Bible is a very complicated collection of books. People think it's just one book. It's a collection of 73 books, 46 in the Old, 27 in the New. And these books were written at different time periods, different literary styles, different authors, different audiences. And you have to piece all that together and at the same time try to see where that fits into history. There's no way you can expect theists on Google Plus or Twitter or Facebook to know this stuff. There's no way because what they get taught is the doctrines, what their respective churches teach them, or what they're supposed to believe in order to be saved or whatever. That's what they get taught. Unfortunately, there's no time for priests to give Bible lessons to every Catholic or Protestant minister to give to their congregation. Even if you ever seen a Protestant service, they stand up there and they have the pulpit and they have the Bible there. They read like 3 or 4 sentences and then they talk for 3 hours, just what they want to say. And they only use 3 or 4 sentences from the book. The rest of it is what they're saying, they're preaching. And the people are not getting fed in regards to what the actual words mean and the context, the hermeneutics and whatnot, and exegesis of what the text is actually trying to convey. And again, that's nobody's fault because Christianity is huge. There's no way you could teach everybody. Who's going to pay for it? People are busy. They have their own lives to take care of. I mean, look at how hard it is for me to get people to come on here to talk. And it's complicated. So I disagree when you say that atheists are right. It's not that they're right. It's just that you're targeting people that are not well educated on the matter. So it might seem to you that the atheists are right.
That's
But
not
I
always.
guarantee you, they approach a theologian or somebody that studied the scriptures and actually knows the original languages, it will be a different encounter. Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, I'm just responding to somebody real quick. It's a Catholic friend of mine. I was asking him if he wanted to join. I was going to ask you, obviously, before giving him the link, but thought you might be interested.
You mean to join right now? Well, actually, I have to cut it short. Not right now, but in a few minutes, I have to cut it short because I have to finish something to update my blog. I usually post something on Sundays for Catholics to read regarding what's going to be read in the Mass. So I have to work halfway through that, and even that takes a lot of work. What I do is I take the readings that they're going to use today, which is already Sunday, and I read the first reading, then it's the Psalm, that's the second reading from the New Testament, and that's the Gospel. And the readings for today has to do with Jesus presenting himself as the bread of life. Again, more imagery, more metaphor. What does that mean? And I had to find the connections and put that together in a way that the general readers from my site can understand. I cannot get too technical. Cannot get too easy. I have to find the right balance in order to make, hopefully, to help them understand what the readings are about and how to apply it in today's world, pretty much. So I'm not going to cut off now, but just in a few minutes I'll let you know. But he or she is welcome to join us the next time, which I was hoping to get more people. I mean, I started this back in March, and I wanted to get into that because I know you were asking me about this guy on Google Plus who has been posting these things about me, and I just wanted to touch a bit about that. So if you don't mind, if we set aside the Bible and all that for a while, just to give a little introduction of why I'm even doing these things. But well,
Yeah,
this
why would you
Atheist Open Mic
dox
thing I
somebody? That's
started back in March, and basically the whole purpose of it was like we're doing now, just to invite atheists, and not just atheists, anybody could come here, an agnostic, Muslim, Jew, whatever you are, just come here and we just talk about it. And again, this is not meant to be a debate. It's not meant to be a shouting match or a Jerry Springer program where we're all yelling at each other and cursing at each other. Whatnot. That's not. I don't want that at all. That's because that's fruitless. It's not productive at all. What I want is that we share ideas, just like you mentioned certain Bible passages, the cloak and the sword, and you brought it up, and then we talked about it, and nobody killed each other, nobody cursed each other out, nothing happened. That was my intention, because I noticed there's a lot of atheists out there, or people that pretend to be atheists, and they post all these questions. I see them in the Theist versus Atheist group on Google Plus. I see it on Twitter, and namely on the online social network atmosphere. I see all these things. They post all these memes and things where like last month this guy on the Theist versus Atheist posted something about the Bible, how the Bible said unicorns came into existence, or no, it's zebras. It was zebras that, and he posted this thing that had all this misspellings and all that, and I said, no, it's not talking about zebras. And I see all these misconceptions and erroneous ideas. So I try my best to try to address them the best I could. But unfortunately, this show was a small minority of people. I'm skeptical of them in regards to them being atheists because all they do on these sites is just attack you. I mean, they post something, right? It might be a joke or something mocking religion or something. And then I or another Christian or Muslim comes along, or even a Buddhist. There's a Buddhist guy that posts a lot. And he makes a comment or tries to explain to the original poster of the comment what this is all about. And the person or me, whoever's making the comment, we get cursed at for no reason, get insulted, get called names just for no reason. I mean, we're just trying to get the discussion going and whatnot. So, and they seem to just do this on these forums. So I decided, I said, you know what? Since a lot of people are using Google Hangouts and it's 2015, why not use this technology that's available? Why not move it over here? You talk to each other live. Um, you get to relax your hands because it gets tiring typing back to everybody. I know I'm almost getting arthritis typing back and forth on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere. So why not just do this and talk, back and forth? And for some reason, they don't want to come, and they bring all kinds of excuses to me, saying, "Oh, well, I'm busy, or I have things to do, or I don't want to talk to you, or you're a dumb theist, whatnot." But yeah, the moment I post something in the community, they flock to it, to comment, and within a few minutes, there's 50 comments, all mostly curses, irrelevant things, arguments with other people, and nothing related to the original thing that I posted. But yeah, when I invite them here, they don't show up. It seems that they just want to hide behind these comment boards, and that's why I get skeptical in regards to their claims to them being atheists. So, that's the reason why I started this, just to give atheists a platform where they could actually talk to somebody and ask questions or whatever, at least from the Catholic perspective, because I can only speak on that. I don't dare speak on Islam or anything else, even though I know about it, but I'm not an expert on it. And also, from coming from an atheist background myself, I was one of them years ago, so I have the understanding, and I use the same arguments they use. I use to myself. I mean, there's nothing new that Dawkins or Krauss or anybody can say that I haven't used myself. And I still have atheist friends. I still am friends with atheist professors. One of my friends is philosopher Massimo Pilucci, and I also, physicist Mikio Kaku. These guys were my instructors in the City University of New York, so I know them well. Even though Kaku's not an atheist, but he's more of an agnostic. But I mean, it's much different discussing with atheists in the academic level than on the online level. In the academic level, I could go right now to a college and walk into a humanist secular club or atheist club and talk to them, and we just have a conversation like we're friends. But online, it's like a whole different story. And you've seen all the comments, all the stuff directed at me for no reason at all. And the guy that we were talking about, um, what's his name, Elif, whatever.
I don't. The
Well,
guy
his
you
story.
doxed.
Yeah, what happened? Did you say something?
Yeah, the guy you doxed.
Okay, well, it wasn't pretty much doxed, but let me explain his story. I really don't like, even though I consider myself a nerd, I prefer more reading books and things like that. That's my life. I like books, sports, and all that. I don't really like technology and all these phones and all that. I mean, it took me a while to get even a touchscreen phone. But anyhow, when Benedict XVI was the Pope, he sent out a letter to priests and seminarians and all that. And he said that we should make use of the media, of the internet and all that. And that's when the Vatican created an account for him on Twitter and all that. And he pretty much told us, we need to get out there in the internet, pretty much, because for some reason the church didn't even think about that. A lot of preachers sit in the churches waiting for people to show up, and they don't go out there and greet the people, say hi to the people, visit them. They don't do that for some reason, which Pope Francis is trying to change that attitude, that laziness. But anyhow, Pope Benedict said, I want you guys to go out there to share the faith with people on social network, on the internet, or not. So I said to myself, you know what, let me try it out. So I created a Twitter account. I used the name Sacerdotus, which in reality is pronounced Sacerdotus, but it's the Latin phrase. And that pseudonym, whatever you want to call it, means like a simple priest. And that was a title back in the old days before Vatican II, when they changed everything into the vernacular today. And pretty much a sacerdotus was like somebody in training to be a priest, or a priest that was ordained that had lesser responsibilities. Like he just said the mass and that's it. And so I decided to use that pseudonym just to make it more interesting and to connect it to my own, as studying for the priesthood myself. So anyhow, I went on Twitter and I had no idea how to use this. My sister told me about it. She had an account, and I just did it. I tweeted something, and then I forgot about it. Like a year passed. That was back in 2009, I think. Then I came back to it, and then I started tweeting, and I would just tweet random things. Like I would tweet a Bible verse or something positive, just to cheer people up, things like that. Or let's pray for this, let's pray for that, or if a disaster happened, just something related to that. And again, at the time, I didn't know that you could actually message each other on Twitter. I mean, I was aware of American Instant Messenger, the little bling thing that people used to chat with. But I figured Twitter was different. I didn't know that you could send messages. But anyhow, one day I clicked the thing that says mentions, and I saw all these things, all these messages from different people, cursing me out, insulting me, and they were from atheists, gays, other Protestants, Christians, and all that. Just, I mean, vile stuff there. And I was like, wow. And again, I was new to Twitter, so I just started to respond to each of them the best I could. And even to the point that they would put me in Twitter jail for replying too much. I don't know if you ever experienced that. If you use Twitter, they lock your account for like an hour or so if you tweet too much. So whenever I got out of the jail, I went back on and finished the rest of the tweets that I got in response to them. But one day, this person who was using a Twitter account, the Rosa one, messaged me and started asking me questions. And we had a little exchange back and forth, asking, I will respond to this person. And this account had like a old lady Halloween mask avatar, which is, I guess, something that atheists like to do nowadays on the internet, put little cartoons and things to make their accounts cool or whatever. Well, no, we had this exchange, and then as we were exchanging, this person blocked me. So I figured, okay, I don't know about that. We didn't insult each other. We just were having a discussion on Twitter, and she or he just blocked me. I didn't pay any mind to it until the person came back after a while, a month or so, and started tweeting me again. So then I decided, you know what? Let me see what this guy is about. Because at the time, I thought it was a guy. So I said, what is this guy about? And I did research. I saw that he had a blog, and it's a very popular blog. A lot of atheists visited and whatnot. So I said to myself, well, I mean, you seem to be very popular on Twitter and whatnot. Why don't we have a debate? We could have a debate and just have fun with it. And the person said, yeah, we could have a debate. But are you going to use science and all that? And I said, yeah, science is my field. That's what I study. So let's do it. So we set it up. I posted the opening, and I was waiting for the person to post their opening. Then this person started to dilly-dally, started to claim that they didn't accept any challenge to be debated or whatnot, and saying that they invited me to debate. I mean, twisting everything around. And I was wondering, what the heck is wrong with this person? This is public. Everybody could see this. And you're telling me that you were the one that invited me to debate? And anyhow, I went back and forth, and the person just didn't want to participate. After accepting the debate, she didn't want to participate. This big, almighty atheist blogger didn't want to participate. So I was like, okay. So then I started getting attacked by these other atheists. I guess some of her friends. They came out of nowhere and they started attacking me on Twitter. And I would respond back, say, there's no need to be behaving like that and whatnot. And so it was like that. And then eventually I had to report these people because they were getting out of control. They were insulting me. One of them even threatened my parents. Somebody from Florida started making death threats and whatnot. So I said, this is getting out of control. All I wanted to do was an innocent debate. And we could even become friends, it's no big deal. But this person saw it like it was a battle, like a game or something. I don't know. And then the person got suspended. And I think that's what unleashed hell on earth. The person got suspended, and then eventually her friends started reporting me for no reason, and I got suspended. Then they restored both of our accounts, and she continued to harass me. And then she made a post lying about me, calling me a fraud, and trying to pin a high school boy's identity on me, that I'm some high school boy in the Bronx or something, and claiming that I was me, and that nobody should pay attention to me or whatnot. And and then saying that I was kicked out of a seminary, and she even named the seminary St. Joseph Francis Seminary. And so again, I had to report her again. So she eventually got suspended permanently. She was completely gone, and her friends started retaliating, and started attacking me and reporting me. So eventually, my account got suspended too, and I was permanently suspended too for no reason. I did nothing wrong. I didn't harass anybody. I didn't curse anybody out. I did nothing wrong, and yet Twitter permanently suspended my account. I said, well, it is what it is. So I just left it at that. But then this atheist blogger kept with the lies, kept promoting and whatnot. And that's where this Elif guy came along, started messaging me. And again, just like the Rosa person, he started talking to me, you know, normally, asking questions. We were discussing. He shared that he had an autistic child and whatnot. And we talked a little bit about autism and this and that. Things seemed fine. But then he changed. He started attacking me. He started calling me dishonest, and just calling me lying. Then he will block me. Then he will unblock me, and then he will block me again. He was just erratic. And then he started to join the other people, the ones that were defending Rosa in the beginning, and they became like a clique right there, and started attacking me. Then they started making blogs, defaming me, saying that I'm this high school kid, and that I was kicked out of the seminary, all kinds of crazy things like that. So then, after I was having trouble on Twitter, I said, you know what, I can't do anything on Twitter because these people are just going to be targeting me. There's nothing I can. So I said, let me try Google Plus. And when I started my blog, I had no idea that it makes a Google Plus account automatically. So I had this account, Sacerdotus, the two-time Sacerdotus. It was there all that time since 2009 or something, whenever I started the blog there, and people were visiting it. That's why you see the counter has like 2 million people. It's because people were visiting it all that time. I had no idea about it. So I said, let me try this out. Let me see what this Google Plus thing is about. So I fixed it up a little bit, put some stuff on it, some information, a bio and all that stuff, and started using it. Started joining atheist groups, theist groups and all that, and just talk with them a little bit, post, block links and whatnot. And everything was fine. And especially with the theist versus atheist community, I will post my blog links or links from other people and get a discussion going. Things were fine. Lo and behold, guess who shows up? This Elif guy. He comes out of nowhere, and apparently he and these other people were stalking me. They seem to be following me wherever I go online. So if I go on Facebook, they search for me there. If I go to MySpace or any other networks out there, they start looking for me. They look for Sacerdotus, wherever I'm at. So he came along and he just started to follow me there. And then whenever I will post something, he will post something as a comment, pretty much trying to take the attention from the comment that I posted. So for example, let's say I posted about the atheist that got killed, that got hacked to death. He will post in a comment something else, drawing attention from the original thread that I started. So I ignored it because I knew he was trying to bait or not. But then that's when he started posting the lies about being kicked out of the seminary. He even started a blog just about me. That's how crazy this guy is. He started a blog just about me. You can find it. It's called The Blind Wolf something on Blogspot. And the whole blog, like 99% of it, is about me. Sacerdotus did this, he did that, he did this, he did that. It's just crazy. This guy, how he's infatuated with me. And again, I ignored it because it's not hurting me. It's not killing me or anything. But then when I started to notice that people in the theist versus atheist group started acting differently, they started getting aggressive with me for no reason. That's when I realized it was a problem. So that's when I had some friends who are lawyers and whatnot. I asked for the help. I said, what can I do about this? Because these people are going around, they're stalking me. They're trying to discredit me so that like atheists won't talk to me or approach me or dialogue with me. And so he did the paperwork and I was able to get this guy's information. And I said, maybe if I post it, he will calm down. Because he uses this wolf cartoon image. He's anonymous. Nobody knows who he is or whatnot. So I said, well, let me shock him a little bit. Maybe that will calm him down. He will stop and everything. And it worked. Once I posted it, his information, his location, he stopped. He even made his Twitter account private. That's how scared he got. And he even emailed me. I don't have my email on. Too bad I don't have the email logged on. I would have showed you right now on the share screen thing. He even emailed me asking me to like stop using that address, start posting it. That's when I realized that it was affecting him. And he calmed down. He hasn't bothered me since. So that's the reason why I posted that, so that to let the other atheists and theists know that I'm having this problem with these people. And again, all this started from a simple invitation to debate this Rosa person back in 2012, 2013. It was just a simple invite. Let's have a debate. And from there, I had this group of people following me all over the place, lying about me, trying to discredit me and whatnot. And one atheist, a young guy, even wrote on a blog. He researched, all these lies about me, and he even showed that it was nonsense. He even contacted the schools that they claim I went to, and they told him no such person went there. He posted on his blog the documentation. He even got the yearbook pictures, the yearbook itself showing that I wasn't there. I didn't go to that school. I had nothing to do with that. And in regards to the claim that I was kicked out of this seminary called St. Joseph's Franciscan Seminary, well, the funny thing is that this seminary closed in the 70s. So it closed in the 70s, yet this person claims that I went to it and was kicked out from it. But the problem is that I wasn't born in the 70s. So how can I be kicked out of a seminary before I was even born? Yeah, this lady, this blogger is posting these lies about me and spreading all over the place. And this Elif guy is pretty much her psychic. So he follows me everywhere and posts these lies so that atheists will avoid me or block me for no reason. And it's unfair. So that's the reason why I posted that, to like show them, you want to play dirty that way, then, I have to do what I have to do to protect myself, to protect what I do, which is trying to talk, to befriend atheists. When I'm not here to fight with atheists or insult them or whatnot. I'm here to befriend them, to give them a platform where they could actually talk to somebody within the Catholic Church. Because a lot of atheists, I doubt atheists will go into a Catholic church and start talking to a priest or a bishop or not. So I try to give them this platform where they could actually speak, talk to, message somebody that's actually in the Catholic Church, who works for this organization, this institution, this big 2,000 plus year old religion. But this Elif guy and Rosa and all these people, they try to stifle it by posting all these lies and whatnot. So that's the reason why I put that. I know you're saying that it's doxing and whatnot, but I just wanted to give a background of why I did that. And it's pretty much to ward these crazy people, to let them know that you're not anonymous. I could find out who you are. And if you want to harass, you want to try to discredit me or lie about me for malicious reasons and whatnot, then I'm going to expose you. I mean, if you just want to be an anonymous cartoon character out there, then fine, you could do that. But if you're trying to interfere with what I'm trying to do, then you have to attain to the consequences. So that's pretty much what the whole story is.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like very good justification to me. It seems like if it seems like if you wanted to be anonymous, you should be able to stay anonymous. And if you want to live publicly, then you can live publicly. I don't. I have a hard time justifying him lying about you if that is indeed what he did. But that's something you have to kind of live with when you're living online. That people are going to be anonymous and they're going to be mean to you. It doesn't justify outing somebody, especially somebody who might be put in danger by you outing him and doxing him. Atheists, we just talked about. There was an atheist in Bangladesh who was killed.
Yeah, but I mean, what about the danger of, to this date, I don't even know who this kid who they claim I am, and I'm sure you see the name posted all over the place. What about that kid? What if this kid really goes to that high school? I mean, this is a minor that we're talking about, and yeah, they're posting this information and linking him with me. I mean, what if somebody goes and attacks this kid thinking that that's me? What if they go to the Bronx and they go to that high school and say, you're a Sacerdotus, and they kill him or shoot him or beat him up or something? There's a lot of crazy people out there. So that's the reason why I posted the information, because by posting it, it scares them.
If they did that, then that's certainly not good. I can't justify them doing that, and I wouldn't try to justify them doing that. That is just as bad, or worse even. But the problem is, I mean, you have. I don't think that actually doxing them is going to actually solve anything, other than putting other people in danger and escalating the situation. If you didn't want to escalate the situation, you wanted to get away from them, you can take precautions to block them and get them out of your life without having to um, give out
Well,
their
that's the
personal.
thing is that you block them and they create other accounts, and then you block those accounts and they create more accounts. That's the problem, and that's the problem with Twitter. That's why the CEO had to resign, because they just don't have it together in regards to trolls. There's a lady that this troll insulting her, telling her that he's going to rape her or whatnot, and she blocks him. The troll makes another account and continues. Then she blocks that account. I mean, it's just never ending. So with Elif, Rose, and all these people, I mean, I could block them a million times, but they just come back. It's like a game of whack-a-mole. They just keep popping up with different accounts and just following your lower place. If a new social network appears, I don't know, if something like Facebook, a new version of Facebook appears, or Google Plus, if Apple creates a Google Plus type thing and I decide to join it, guess who's gonna follow me there? Elif and Rose and all these people, and they're gonna go over there and start to mess things up over there too. So, like I said, the moment I posted this information, they actually stopped. They calmed down. But the problem is now is that some people, they were brainwashed by these individuals, especially in the theist versus atheist group community. Uh, they do a Google search, they look for Sacerdotus, and they come up across that blog with the lies and everything. So then they say, "Aha, that's this guy that I'm dealing with in this community," and then they repost it. Just yesterday morning on another group, Atheism Unmoderated. I don't know if you're a member of that community. This guy Anton, he just came out of nowhere and just posted Sacerdotus is a fraud, and I mean, just I never talked to this guy. I never exchanged with this guy. We never commented back and forth. I never saw him on Twitter or anywhere else. And he just came out of nowhere on that group and that community and just posted Sacerdotus is a fraud. According to this blog, he even posted the link. So then what's going to happen? People are going to read that and they're going to believe it for no reason. I never even messaged them. And they blocked me just for the sole fact that these people are spreading lies about me. So I had to do
Hello.
to really dialogue, to talk things out. They get discouraged and they either are forced to block me, believing that I am what these people claim I am, and then nothing gets done. But like I said, once I posted the information, they calmed down, they stopped. And the other group on Twitter, they calmed down as well. And as a matter of fact, like I told you, my account was permanently banned. I was banned just for being a theist, a Catholic, being reported for no reason by these people. I was banned. So again, I asked these lawyers for help, and they wrote up a letter for me. They asked me for the evidence, the tweets, and I got over 56 pages of tweets, 56 pages of tweets, screenshots that I took. 56 pages, that's a lot of tweets that I've gotten from these people. And I gave it to them, and they processed it, and they sent it to Twitter. They sent it over to California, and they explained to them, listen, you wrongfully suspended this guy, this Catholic, and he has been the target of these trolls. And here's the evidence. And if you don't restore his account, we're going to sue you, pretty much. They pretty much sent a cease and desist letter to Twitter Inc. And just in March, out of nowhere, my account was restored after 3 years of being suspended, permanently banned, meaning they were never going to restore my account again. Just this past March 18 or something like that, my account appeared out of nowhere. And the reason I knew it came back was because I started getting the notifications on my phone, on my email. I started getting messages saying so and so followed you on Twitter, and this account followed you, and you got this message and that message. And I said, wait a minute, how could I get that if I was banned? And that's when I logged on and I realized they restored my account. Not only my account, but the account of other people who were targeted. Because that's another thing. If anybody, theist or atheist, like befriends me or talks to me, or even gives a slightest hint of defending me, Elif and Rosa and all these people, they start claiming that those accounts are me, are sock puppets that I created. So, like for example, if you start like befriending me, or I don't know, I don't think they could do it now because now they see us that we're two different people. But let's say if you didn't come on tonight and you befriended me on these groups or communities, and or you even defended me for one instance, you said something, you said that's not cool what you said to Sacerdotus or whatnot. Let's say you said that. Well, then Elif and Rosa would say, well, guess what? Seth is really Sacerdotus. He's not a real person. He's a sock puppet. And that's what these people have been doing. So, I mean, it's just crazy. The only thing I could do is either sue the hell out of them, which I really don't want to do because, I mean, we're supposed to forgive people. And again, these people are not killing me. But again, I can't just let them stifle what I'm trying to do. I mean, if they consider me that such a big of a threat, I mean, uh, that's one thing. But to go around and literally following me in every social network and try to discredit me and pin identities on me which are not mine, I mean, I have to do something about it. So my best bet was to show them, you think you're anonymous, you think you can go around and pretend to be different people and make different accounts. No, you can't, because this is who you are. I know where you live. I know who you are. I know your work. I know all these details about you. So either you calm down and relax and like back off, or I'm gonna have to show the whole world that avoid this person because this is who they are, and show them the address and everything. I even contacted the police in the United Kingdom where Elif lives at, in Maidstone, Kent, over there in the UK. I even contacted the police over there and let them know that this crazy guy has been doing this. And they pretty much told me to do that, to contact a lawyer, to go to the police in my area, which is Boston, and talk to them, get a paper and all that, and just follow through with it. And if I want, I could press charges on Elif and all these other characters. But again, like I told you, part of being Christian is to forgive people, and I really don't want anybody to be arrested. I mean, that's not something I look forward to. But if it has to come to that, then I mean, I have to do what I have to do. Otherwise, it's just going to continue, and the people out there who benefit from whatever I have to offer won't be able to, because these people are going around lying about me and trying to discredit me and trying to make me into a pariah that atheists have to avoid, or other people have to avoid. And I mean, something has to be done, But like I said, Elif and the others, they calmed down after I did it. They calmed down. And the reason why I posted that thing recently that you commented on was because it started to start up again. I started seeing people posting the blog link with the lies about me and recirculating it. And then whenever I will post my blog links, instead of atheists commenting on the blog link itself, they will start saying, oh, well, you're a fraud, this and that. So that's when I said, you know what? Let me tell them the truth. This person who's spreading this around is this person, and he lives here. And it stopped. Just like that, it stopped. And by doing so, that's why I warned the others. I said, you want to do the same thing? I'm going to find out who you are too. And I will do the same thing. If you want to behave like an idiot, like a child, you want to be, because, I mean, that hurts atheism. You're not helping atheism by behaving that way. But if you want to do that and you think that you're going to stifle me or other Catholics and whatnot, then I'm going to put an end to it. I'm going to expose people, because that's what empowers them. The fact that they think they're anonymous, that's what gives them power. They feel they could do whatever they want. They feel they could abuse or harass, defame whoever they want, because they feel nobody's going to catch them. I mean, if you have the power to be invisible, wouldn't you feel powerful? Wouldn't you feel that you could rob any bank and nobody could see you because you're invisible. I mean, it empowers you. You think you have a power, then it inflates your ego, and that's what happens with these people. They use the guise of anonymity to behave this way. They become a whole totally different person online because they're anonymous, or they claim to be anonymous. But when you show them that they're not anonymous, then obviously they can't play that game anymore because it's too.
That's kind of
So
hypocritical.
it's
You're
pretty much
living
the
anonymously
backstory
as
of what's
well.
going on.
You're living anonymously as well. What right do you have to take that away from them?
What was that?
If you're living anonymously online as well, what right do you have to take that away from them?
Well, not really. I mean, you go to my site, my about me. I mean, I posted my name, I posted my academic records, um, and like other Catholics on Twitter can vouch for me. Priests, bishops can vouch for me on Twitter that know me personally. So I mean, that's not really anything anonymous about me, but with them it's different. They don't post any names. They don't post any academic records. They don't post anything else. All you have is a pseudonym and a cartoon character. But with me, I mean, I have all my information there. People, can see people on Facebook, Twitter. They know who I am. They know me personally. They see me face to face, so they can vouch for me, and they can vouch that I am part of the Catholic Church and all that stuff. So that's not really a problem. But try to do that with them. I mean, I dare you go to Rosa's blog right now and post a comment asking who she is and whatnot, and what she's either gonna insult you or block you or not. Try it.
I don't know
Or
why
she'll
I would
say
want
that
to
you're
know
me.
that. Why I don't see why that would matter. I have no reason to ask somebody who they are.
No, I'm just saying so that you could see the psychology of these people, just to test it out. I mean, just go right now and go to the blog and like the
I
one
think
where she's calling me a fraud,
I think the
and like
psychology makes perfect
just
sense. I
even
mean, somebody,
post a skeptical question like, "Where's your evidence for that? How do you know that Sacerdotus is this guy?" and all that. Just even post that skeptical question, and you see the responses she'll give you. She'll either
now
insult you, call you more, or she'll say that you're me. That you're
that,
me.
that's that's fine,
You're
and
seeing the
I
name
don't
Seth.
I don't feel the need that because she goes around telling people that I'm a sock puppet of yours or that I'm an idiot because I asked her a question, that I have any right to expose her address or her real name or any of that information that she doesn't want published. That's just something that I'm going to have to deal with if I'm going to live publicly online. That some people are going to lie about me or make ridiculous claims, and my response is going to be, I mean, the same response I've had to other people who've made similar statements about me. Okay, well, you can say that, and nobody who knows me online is going to believe you.
Yeah, but that's the problem is that the people do believe her. That's the problem. You have all these
Right. And
people that actually read this blog and they believe it. I mean, this person doesn't even have evidence. It's all conjecture. They pulled out somebody's name, they claim it was me, and they make all these. They even make fake MySpace pages. I never used MySpace. They
right.
made
Well,
these fake MySpace pages. They put, you see the symbol that you see right now, the PNX. They put that symbol on the MySpace page, and they said, "Oh, that's him."
right. I think the correct
And they
response
just,
to that
I mean, it's just
is to
crazy.
live honestly and you show that you're better than that by not stooping to their level by, say, doxing them. I think by doxing them, you've only proven their point.
I mean, one point. I mean, their point is just to discredit me. My point is that you try to interfere with my business, then you're
But they're not
playing with
interfering with
fire,
your
pretty much.
business.
I mean, a lot of people do this now. Like for example, some judges have ordered people to go in the street and wear a cardboard saying their crime or whatever they did. In New York City, I think there's a campaign that for guys who sit with their legs too spread on the subway. Now they're inviting people to take photographs of them with their cell phones and put it on the site to shame them. So then when the guy goes on the internet and sees himself in the subway with the legs wide open, taking up another seat, then he will stop doing the behavior. So I don't see, you know, anything big about it, to be honest with you. And again, addresses are public. I mean, you could go to white pages and you could find addresses there. So it's not, the only thing I did was just identify what address to whom. But if you knew the person's name, that you could find it yourself online. I mean, it's there on white pages, um, Info Snipe, I think it is. What is it?
There was a
Anyway,
bunch of
all those
atheists.
different sites out there.
There are
that
a bunch
you
of
can
atheists
find
that did this
names
to
and
a
all that.
couple of. There are a bunch of atheists that did this to a couple of Christians online, and I spoke out against that as well. I don't think that you really have any right to start doxing people. Even, I mean, if their profile, if they don't want to live publicly, even if you could find their public information by doing deep Google searches, that's not obviously not something that they want advertised. Advertising it, there's only one possible reason you could do that, is to show that I can get this information about you and I can find you and other people can as well. And yeah, that's scary. And it shouldn't be. That is not the way you want to silence your critics. You should silence your critics by making them look dumb, not by making them fear that somebody might come to their house.
Well, I mean, that does silence them. The fact that, because again, the anonymous guys is what gives them power. They feel they could
Yeah.
go around and do these things.
And they can, and they should be allowed to.
The mask off, they can't do it anymore.
Sure,
I
they
call
can.
it the Scooby Doo effect. When they pull the mask off, say, this is the guy that did the crime, whatever. They can't do it anymore because
Sure
now
they
your
can.
trick is up.
I live publicly, and people say these things about me, and I don't. I'm not silenced by people trying to dox me, and I shouldn't be doxed. Again, if your arguments stand on their own, if you're really who you say you are, and you're not this bad person, then I don't see why. Then taking the high road proves that. Doxing them does not prove that. And the only thing doxing does, sure, I'm not saying it doesn't silence them. I'm very much saying that does silence them. What I'm saying is they're silenced because they're afraid somebody might come to their house. They're not silenced because they're made to look dumb by the fact that you didn't react the way they predicted, or that you showed them that their argument is stupid and pathetic. You silence them because they're afraid somebody might come to their house now, and that's a tragic thing. And you could do that. You could do that to anyone, even with points who make sense, right? There's two ways to silence someone: actually, honestly taking on their arguments and proving them wrong, which you can only do, at least in most cases, if you're right. The other way is to threaten them or make them scared that somebody's going to come to their house. The second one will silence them even if they're correct.
Well, I mean, like I told you, diplomacy didn't work. I tried to message these people. I tried to clarify things. I even invited this Rosa person. I even invited her to go on Skype. And again, this was before Google Hangouts. I invited her to Skype to go, and we could show each other our IDs so that she could see who I am. She could see that I'm not the person she thinks I am. End of story. She didn't want to do that because she knows the moment I do that, it's going to defeat her lies about me, and people are going to see that she's a liar. So again, these people are not interested in that. I could ignore them all I want. They still are going to stalk me. They still are going to lie about me and whatnot. Because again, that guise of anonymity is going to empower them. So once, like I said, once I put the information, once I linked a physical location to the person, it wakes them up. And they know they cannot go around trolling people because we know where they are. And then when you have the legal options, I mean, I could sue them for defamation, for libel. I could sue them for different things. Because what they're doing is, if I want to consider this a business, which under the law will consider this work a business, a non-profit business, I could sue them for damages because they are interfering with this corporation, this business, so to speak, this non-profit business of religion, of promoting the gospel. Because under the law, obviously, that's the way they see it. So, I mean, to me, it's better to link the person to a physical location so they know that they're not anonymous, so they better cut it out, than actually going and wasting money in the court and possibly losing and even facing jail time. Because in the United Kingdom, the penalties there are worse than in America. You actually get to spend 2 years in prison for being a troll over there. could actually be sent 2 years in prison. So I mean, Elif and these people.
Not for being a troll. There's no law in the UK stopping you from being a troll.
What was that?
A troll is somebody online who takes up a position that is usually an aggravating position in order to frustrate people that they do not actually hold. There's no law against that anywhere, as far as I know.
Well, in the UK, yes. If you
I don't
use
think so.
that ability, trolling, whatever you want to call it, to harass people, to stalk them and whatnot, there's actually a 2-year prison term over there. I forgot the name of the law. I put it on my blog, the laws over there. So I mean, Elif has to make up his mind if he wants to continue propagating these lies, or just erase them and we have a start a blank slate. I mean, I have no problem with that. But if he wants to continue lying about me and claiming that other people who defend me or who befriend me are my sock puppets, then I mean, something has to be done about it. Otherwise, it's just going to continue and nothing's going to get done. And instead of having a nice conversation like I'm having with you right now, I'm going to be forever on Deists versus Atheists, receiving comments calling me by a different name that's not mine, or saying that I'm a fraud. I mean, it's not necessary. Because again, these people wouldn't know about this stuff unless Elif and all of them would have been propagating it. So then there's the option of getting their blocks removed, which can be done. I mean, the lawyers could send a cease and desist to Google Inc. and WordPress and get these blocks taken down. And again, I really don't want to do that because I value free speech. And I don't think it looks right if I ask a lawyer to contact these companies and ask them to take down these blogs.
And yet,
the process, all of their information gets erased. All their
there's
hard
a chilling
work, all their
effect.
blog posts get erased.
There's a chilling effect on free speech when people can't comment on what you say anonymously. If you're going to go ahead and dox people because you don't like what they have to say about you, there's a chilling effect on free speech. I didn't want to enter in to give you any information about me because you doxed this person to enter in your hangout. That's a chilling effect on free speech.
Yeah, but again, this information is available. Anybody can find it.
It's totally fine. I totally grant you that in this argument. It still has a chilling effect on free speech. The fact that if you don't like if I came in here and we got an argument, if you didn't like what I had to say, you might go try to post my address on Google Plus, something I don't want everyone on Google Plus to have.
No, but that's the difference, because I wouldn't do that. Because again, the whole reason why this is going on is because these people are lying about me. You're not doing that. So even if we have a disagreement or argue about something, that's normal. I mean, I argue all the time. I argue with other Catholics. It happens all the time. But if you are going to go around and slander me, say that I'm somebody else that I'm not, call me a fraud and all that, then of course there's laws out there that protect me from that. And free speech doesn't mean that you have the right to abuse other people. And to free speech, there's consequences. You don't have a right to shout fire in a movie theater. I mean, free speech is not absolute. So just because you have free speech doesn't give you the right to go around and lie about people, slander them, try to discredit them, try to get people to avoid them just for whatever reason. And that's why there's laws to protect from all of that. I can't go around and insult atheists and whatnot and discredit atheists and whatnot, because the same thing's going to happen to me. Somebody's going to sue me if I do it. And as a matter of fact, that happened to a Catholic blogger that I know. He was actually sued by a Catholic priest, and it was all over the news. This Catholic blogger, he's one of the traditional Catholics who believe in the older rites, Latin and all that. Well, he wrote some blog posts about this priest because this priest makes some comments that he didn't like in regards to how Pope Francis is treating homosexuals and divorcees and whatnot. So I guess this priest stalked this guy's blog and sent him a letter from lawyers that he was going to sue him. So the blogger got scared and he didn't know what to do. And he contacted me and I said, you know what? I read your blogs. You did nothing wrong. You were just expressing an opinion. You were not defaming this priest. You felt you were giving your opinion on what this priest said. This priest said some things that rubbed you the wrong way, and you gave your opinion. You weren't defaming him or doing anything of that such. And so he followed through. People raised money for him. They got him a lawyer, and the priest eventually backed out. He stopped the lawsuit because he had no ground to begin with. But in regards to Elif and Rosa, now these people they're not criticizing my opinions, my thoughts, my blog posts. They're not doing that. They're going directly at me, pinning an identity on me that's not mine, claiming that I was kicked out of a seminary, which is that's a big charge. I mean, here I am right now. I'm asking Catholics and people to help with donations so that I could pay the domain name and get a subscription on Block Talk Radio to have 3 hours so that people could call in the show and all that, just to expand it, at least from a half hour to 3 hours to 2 hours. So I'm here asking for donations for Catholics to help me. And you know what's going on in the background? Elif Rosa are messaging these people, telling them not to donate because I'm a fraud. I was kicked out. It's unfair. They're interfering with what I'm doing. And again, they have no evidence of this. They have no evidence. The evidence that she says is that I was kicked out of a seminary that was closed before I was born. So, I mean, either I'm a time traveler and I went back to time before I was born and participated in the seminary, which closed before I was born, or this person is BSing, is lying. And unfortunately, a lot of atheists they're not good in researching these things. Just because an atheist says it, they quickly believe it. I mean, they make the claims to Christians, especially fundamentalists, about that they quickly believe anything. Then they're not free thinkers and whatnot. But meanwhile, these online atheists do the same thing with these two individuals. They come across this blog and they read the stuff and they believe it. They don't even question it. I don't know if it's fear. I don't know what it is. And luckily, one atheist, you could check out his blog, studiosatheist.blogspot.com. He wrote several posts criticizing Rosa and Elif and all that, and he actually showed documentation. He posted all that up, showing that the stuff they wrote about me is fictitious. One thing that they also said was that I was friends with a bishop, and this bishop died before. I mean, he died before I even became Catholic. So how the heck could I be friends with a bishop when I was an atheist? Doesn't make sense. Yeah, this people are promoting this nonsense on blogs. So that's the difference. It's not about free speech. It's just that they're maliciously targeting me to discredit me and whatnot. And I really don't see why, because all I did was invite this person to a debate. That's all. It wasn't meant. I wasn't expecting all of this, to be honest with you. I was not, because it didn't happen with anybody else. And if you go to my other blog, rationallyfaithful.blogspot.com, I had debates with other atheists, with a well-known blogger from YouTube, Bible Reloaded. We had a debate. He didn't go around lying about me and slandering me. I didn't post his information. I didn't have no reason to get his information. We had a debate. We had fun with it, and it was end of story. But this other person, I don't know what's wrong with her. She must be mentally ill or something, that she didn't take to the fact that she couldn't continue the debate with me. I really don't understand what went on with her. Or she feels that she can't be challenged or whatnot. And she walked away from the debate and just resorted to posting these lies about me. And unfortunately, a lot of atheists are buying into it, and they don't bother to do the research like this atheist kid I told you about did. They don't bother to call the seminary up and ask if I really was expelled. They don't bother to call the schools that they claim I'm studied there or graduated from to verify whether so-and-so person went there. All she did was post these fake MySpace pages, which don't exist anymore. She created them, put the symbol that you see in front of you on them to make it look like I made them, and took screenshots and then put them on her blog. I said, look, that's his MySpace. That's what she did. And these atheists, the readers, the ones that believe this nonsense, they don't even bother to call the schools and verify this information. Her blog is just conjecture. And it has been affecting the whole work that I'm trying to do with atheists, and not just atheists, but other people, agnostics and so forth. And then there's the problem of the stalking. These people are literally stalking me. They follow me everywhere. On Google Plus, Elif wasn't here for months. Then all of a sudden he showed up, specifically in Theists versus Atheists, the group that I was in, the community. I keep calling it a group, but you know what I mean. He came out of nowhere. He joined it. He found me there. And they're going all over the place. They haven't really touched me on Facebook because on Facebook you have to add friends and all that in order to interact with them. So naturally they can't do that because then it will show evidence that they actually friend requested me. So what they do is they follow me everywhere. If I go on Reddit and post on Reddit, they'll appear there too, posting the same thing. Don't listen to Sacerdotus, he's a fraud, he's this, he's that, and that. And it's unfair. So that's why I figured, let me post this information so to let them and others know that just because you make an account, put a little cartoon on it, make it cute, that nobody's going to know who you are and nobody's going to track you down, and you could do whatever you want. You could insult people, threaten to kill them, lie about them, whatnot, and you're going to get away with it. So you will be found out. And there are laws that will give you permission to do so. And to my knowledge, and I forgot to mention, the lawyers actually suggested that I do that. They told me before I take any legal action to do that first, to get their information and post it, to thwart them, pretty much to unmask them. Again, I didn't post their information. You keep saying that their families are going to be threatened and whatnot, but I did not post photographs of them, so nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows what they look like, whatnot. All I did was post what's already available, an address. You could find that anywhere. Again, if you knew Elif and Rosa and all these people personally, then you could find it online. So it's not new information that's being discovered. And as far as their lives being endangered or whatnot, I didn't post photographs. And I wouldn't post photographs. Even if I have photographs, I wouldn't post them unless they were already available online. If there was a Facebook of their profile, then yeah, I will post it because they put them themselves up. But if I found photographs or through a private detective or something, and they were private, they were taken by the detective or whatnot, then of course I will not post that. But if I do find their Facebook something that they put up themselves, then I will post it and say, be careful with this person because this is what they're doing, and just to let you know, this is who they are. And so far it worked. They calmed down. So far things are calm. On Twitter, they're not really messaging me as much. Just this week, the only people that were messaging me were people complaining about the Planned Parenthood videos and all that. But other than that, I'm not really getting any more messages regarding the lies about me. With the exception of yesterday morning, where the Anton guy posted in the Atheism Unmoderated group, calling me a fraud and all this stuff. So I mean, that's why I wanted to give you a little background on that. And again, if they stop, if these people stop, I'm willing to pull everything down. I will erase everything if they stop. If they stop stalking me, harassing me, and lying about me, posting these lies, if they just stop it. All I ask is to stop it. That's it. If you don't want to debate or do anything, then block me. I mean, leave it at that. There's no need to make blog posts pinning somebody else's identity on me and saying that I was expelled. One of them even accused me of raping a child. I mean, do you know what consequences that is? Can you imagine, the people in the seminary, if they find that out? They will start questioning me if that's true. I mean, you going around, suppose I go around saying that you molested somebody or something. I mean, that's a big charge. And yet these people are going around saying these things, that I did something to somebody, when in fact I didn't do anything to anybody. And it just has to stop. And again, I'm willing to pull everything down. And I told Elif, I emailed him, I emailed each of them, and I told them, if you guys erase everything, stop the lies and all that, then I'll do the same thing. I'll just erase everything. I'll take down the blog post like it never happened, and we could go on our merry ways, and that's the end of the story. But these people don't want to do that. They are hell bent to take me down, to discredit me. The only thing that's really protecting me now is that I use a pseudonym. I mean, they don't know my real last name or not. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality that's going on. So whenever you see on these communities, these atheists coming out of nowhere and attacking me and calling me by a different name, then you know the reason. It's because of that situation back in 2012. A simple debate invitation went to hell. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm just waiting to see what happens. And like I said, there's always the option of going and seeking, heavier charges and all that, or getting the blocks removed, which will probably be easier and cheaper. Luckily, these people do it for free for me because they work for the church. These are lawyers that work pro bono, so I don't have to pay anything. But these atheists, or so they claim they are, do they really have the money to deal with a case against me? I don't think so. So, I mean, it's up to them. I mean, they could just cut out the crap and stop lying, or continue having to deal with being exposed or possibly facing legal charges and making it worse because they have to answer those charges. They have to pay legal fees and all that stuff. I mean, who wants to go through that mess? So hopefully that clarifies the whole situation and all that. In regards, and again, the reason why I posted an atheist versus atheist is because I noticed that some accounts there were rehatching the whole thing again. So when I see it rehashed again, that's when I put it. I said, well, you want to call me a fraud? You want to call me this? Well, this is the origin of it. This is who's doing it, and this is where you can find them. And when I do that, it seems to stop. They stop it. Like I said, they stopped on Twitter. They're not doing it anymore on Twitter. They stopped. They backed away. Now they're just targeting creationists and other people. They're really paying attention to me or whatnot. So that's where it stands. So changing the story a bit of the topic. Who was this person you were telling me about that wanted to join a Catholic, you said?
No, he was in another hangout. I was just suggesting that you might want him to join. You were looking for Protestants, so I talked to a couple of the Christians that I thought might do okay on here, or you might want to talk to a Protestant and a Catholic. But I don't think that so. One of them hasn't responded. The other one was in another hangout. So.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, as long as they're reasonable people, mature people, I don't mind. But if they're gonna come up here and like say that you're wrong and I'm wrong and they're right, then I mean, I don't really want that kind of crowd here. Or if I want, or they want to go after me for Catholicism, like, oh, you guys worship Mary or something like that, then I really don't want that here because that's not what I want for this hangouts. I just want this to be mainly for atheists, agnostic, people who have issues believing in God or a problem with religion and whatever, and just like hatch it out, just bring it out. What is it that's blocking you from believing in God? What is it that's blocking you from believing in a specific religion or belonging to a specific religion? Or if you're part of a specific religion, what do you see wrong with it? And then we just go from on there and discuss it and whatnot. That's pretty much the attention of this atheist. That's what's called Atheist Open Mic. It's not about me here telling you you're wrong and you're going to hell. That's not what I want. I'm just trying to follow in Pope Francis' footsteps. That he wants us to be out there with the people, to talk to the people, to listen to the people. That's the key word, to listen to the people.
My experience with religion is much like Pendulite recently said. But Pendulite recently commented on the latest study of religiosity in the United States and how it's shrinking pretty drastically. And his response was some website, CNN or something, asked the question, what can religion do, or what can the church do to get people back to the church or back to religion? And Penn Jillette put it kind of an interesting way, in a way that I kind of feel the same way. Obviously, not everyone feels this way, especially not all atheists, but I feel this way. And that is, I have fond memories of going to the ice cream shop when I was a kid. My family still goes to the ice cream shop. I have no problem with the how clean the ice cream shop is, or how the people at the ice cream shop treat me. The problem that I have with going to the ice cream shop, and why I don't go anymore since I was a kid, is they don't have any fucking ice cream.
Okay, how does that relate to religion?
So in this metaphor, the ice cream shop is religion and ice cream is God. The problem that I have with religion isn't necessarily, though, that people can use religion negatively, and I see that happen a lot. My major problem with religion is the fact that it's just not true, that God doesn't exist. I've fond memories of religious people and religious institutions when I was a child. Nobody abused me in religion or tried to indoctrinate me. I was read Bible stories as a kid. I was brought to church. I love going to church, and I go anytime somebody invites me. I just don't think that God exists. As a matter of fact, I think that God doesn't exist.
Okay, well, I mean, that's understandable, but there's different ways to address that, because in regards to God, the way again, I go speak to the Catholic tradition. We all have the gift of faith, all of us, even atheists. We all have the gift of faith, but we have to open it. That's the key word. We have to open it. In order to discover God, to experience God, we have to open that gift. And once you open that gift, that's when the grace of God comes in and starts to transform you. Once the grace of God starts transforming you, that's when you start performing works. That's when you become quote unquote Christian, loving your neighbor as yourself, helping other people, spreading the love around and whatnot. So that's pretty much the process of how Catholicism understands it. The problem is that with atheists, many of them, they seem to put a mental block. For whatever reason, I'm not going to judge. Each person has a different reason. Like you mentioned, you weren't abused by anybody in church, or nobody proselytized you or not. There might be atheists who were abused in the church, or proselytized, and they just got annoyed by the people, the watchtower people knocking at the doors every day, or the Mormons or something like that. And they just said, to hell with it, I'm not going to believe this BS or not. So, I mean, it's really hard to put everybody in a cookie cutter in regards to atheism, but each person is different. And again, that's why I want this to work out. This Atheist Open Mic is to have different atheists present their experience, their ideas, because each person is different. When I was an atheist back then, I had my reasons. In regards to, I just don't believe God exists, I really didn't think that way. Where my situation was that I really didn't, it didn't cross my mind. I mean, my family is not religious. My family is not religious at all. Nobody goes to church. I have a couple aunts. An aunt who's evangelical. She goes around, but she never bothered me with it. We never talked about it. That she kept to herself. And my parents never went to church. We never brought up God. We never did anything of that. We never prayed. We never read the Bible and all that stuff. I learned about the Bible because it was brought up in history classes, or whenever they in elementary school, whenever we talked about the court system, judges, and how people swear on the Bible, or the president. Or when people take the oath of office, they swear on the Bible. That's when I like, what is that? What is the Bible? I remember asking my teacher that, what is the Bible? What's that? To me, when I saw images when I was a kid of people swearing on the Bible, I thought that was like the law book. That's what I thought when I was a kid. When I saw people in the court, like videos of people in the court, and they, put their hand on the book and all that. I thought that that book was like the book of the laws of the U.S. that they were swearing on. That's what I thought. But then when they told us, no, that's the Bible, and I'm like, what's the Bible? What's that? Oh, this is a book of religious story. And I said, well, why do they use that book and not somebody else's book? I mean, there's other religions that have different books, right? Because obviously there's different religions. Why just that one? And then that's when the teacher, the history teacher, social studies teacher, I forget who it was, who mentioned that the Europeans came here and they brought Christianity, and that's pretty much the system that came to be. And also, in God we trust. I never really paid attention to that on the dollar bill. In God we trust. I just used money. I mean, it didn't cross my mind. In God, those words didn't really cross my mind. I just figured that was just part of the decoration of the dollar. That's the way when I was a kid. And then as I got older, obviously I got more experience with people with different religions, Jehovah's Witnesses, Pentecostals, and all that. And we would have discussions, and they would tell me all these stories. And the story that like really pissed me off a lot was the flood. When they would tell me, well, God was upset and he flooded everybody. He flushed the toilet and everybody drowned. I mean, I'm like, why would he do that? I mean, does why would you create something to then destroy it again? And like, if you are all powerful or almighty, can you just fix everything? Do you really have to wipe everybody out in a flood? I mean, babies, children, what did they do? I mean, I could understand the adults, doing stuff, bad stuff, but what did the babies do? The little kids do? And that was just me back then, junior high school. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't know about that. I was just going by what these kids were telling me. I remember in high school, this guy in the class, he invited me to a Christian club after school. So I said, oh, let me see what it's about. I went and sat down, and one of the teachers was like the leader of it. He was the art teacher, and forgot his name. And it was a small group. It was like five kids there and all that. And I came in, and they welcomed me and all that. Then they started talking about the Bible and reading all that stuff. And that's when I started asking questions. And they would answer them, but their answers weren't satisfactory. Like, it didn't really tell me anything. And on top of those questions, I would ask follow-up questions. And eventually they got annoyed with me, and I I wasn't invited again. So I really didn't pay attention to that. Then eventually going to college and all that, I started reading more. I actually took the Bible and read it, the whole thing front to back. And again, I read it like it was a regular book. I didn't read it like it was a spiritual book or a religious book. I just read it like a regular book. Like if it was To Kill a Mockingbird or something. I just read it that way. That was my frame of mind, just reading it. And I was so curious about it that I even took a course in college in my freshman year called Bible as Literature. Because like I told you before in the beginning, I love reading. Reading is one of my things. I love books. I even posted a picture on Theists versus Atheists, or the books that I'm reading just for the summer. But anyhow, I took the course, and the professor, he was an excellent, English professor, and we went through every book of the Bible, but we read it like in an academic sense, not a religious sense. So that's when I started to realize like the connections, like I was telling you before, where the time of the people, how they express themselves, and all that stuff. So I learned that aspect of the Bible through that class, which is funny because that wasn't a religious class. So that's when I started to see the Bible in that light. Wait, this is a book that was written by people a long time ago. They wrote it for a specific audience, and I had to read it in light of that. Like for example, one of the things that I learned in that class was the Adam and Eve story, where it says that God put Adam into the sleep and took one of his ribs, and from that rib made Eve. Now, if you're just reading the story just like that, you say, "Oh, that's cute." He made a woman out of a rib. That's cute. Doesn't happen in real life, but it's cute. It's interesting. But then when you see the actual meaning behind it, what does it represent? It makes sense. And basically, the story is conveying that men and women are equal, because God didn't take Adam's foot to make Eve, because woman is not below man. He didn't take Adam's scalp to make Eve, because women are not above men. He took the side, the rib, to show that men and women are supposed to stand side by side, equals. They're supposed to be equals. Now, I didn't know that until I took this class, this literature class. When I started to understand the poetry, the metaphor behind these stories, these verses, and all that. So that's what opened up my mind more about the Bible. But again, I wasn't focused on that then because I was focused on graduating. So while I was taking my classes, science classes, astronomy, physics, and all that, I was just focused on that. And then I read other books. I read books on different religions. Whenever I saw the Jehovah's Witnesses on the street, I will purposely ask them for those magazines and to read them. I wanted to see what they thought. So that was the purpose of it. I even visited some evangelical churches, Pentecostal churches, Baptist churches, and I just sat there and like a psychology experiment, just observed them, see them shouting, screaming, talking in tongues. Some of them are more quiet, traditional, silent with the organ music, and I just absorbed that in all those different things. Went to the mosque in Manhattan, over there in Park Avenue. Visited that. Visited St. Patrick's Cathedral. Saw that, and just experienced the Catholic Mass. Again, I didn't know anything about this. It was completely new to me, and I just jotted all that down. Wrote my experiences, what I thought about it, and continued reading on different philosophies of God, Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, Camus, all these different people, Plato, Aristotle, all these different philosophers. Read up on them, the different ideas of God, Aquinas, Augustine, Anselm, all of them, and just try to put a picture of what this being is. And while I was preparing for my the final studies in my physics class, uh, for specifically quantum physics, learning about the subatomic particles and the different um, particles and the forces at work, that opened up my mind more. Ironically, it was science like opened up my mind because I mean, I knew the moniker of the universe just came to be, and that's just the way it is, and that's okay. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson often says, the universe doesn't have to give a reason; it just is. Well, that didn't satisfy me. That didn't. I needed to know why it is. I mean, by you telling me that the universe came to be just because it came to be, you're not telling me anything. I want to know more. There has to be more. It came to be for what? There has to be something. So, while studying the quantum physics and all that, I started to realize that this whole idea of a mind, a logos, creating the universe is not that crazy at all. Even though it is crazy, the idea of an invisible guy out there who made everything and is supposedly all powerful, but doesn't show himself to you. I mean, the whole idea is crazy. But I think that's what attracted me more because it's like a mystery. And as a student of science, mystery is what intrigues us. New Horizons went to Pluto. Why? Because we want to know. We want to know the mystery. We want to know what the hell's out there. That mystery is what drives human beings to seek knowledge, truth, and all of that. So, with the physics and all that, I started to see, the correlation between an intelligent creator or whatever you want to call it, a logos, a mind, and the structure of the universe, how it was created. And some things that stood out to me was the whole idea of the singularity. That everything started at zero energy. It just came to be. Now, physicists give all kinds of explanations as to why that is, but none of them are really satisfactory. The one that is really out there is that the universe just bounces back and forth. That's pretty much the one that's being discussed now, that's popular now. of the bouncing universe, that the universe collapses on itself into a singularity, then expands again. Then after the entropy expires, it collapses again, and it just continues this cycle. But the problem with that is that the way it relates to gravity, the interval of the bounces will not correlate with the time that it takes to rewound. And what I mean by that is that as the universe expands and then contracts and then expands and then contracts, the intervals, the bounces will be longer. It will get longer and longer and longer. And the problem with that is that the sum of everything in the universe will have to increase. And based on the laws of physics, that's not possible. And the way, hopefully I'm not confusing you or anybody else that's listening, but the way I could explain it is that suppose you have a cup of water and you fill it up to the rim. Now you know the cup will only hold that amount of water. If you put any more in it, it overflows. Now, if you continue putting water in that cup or that glass, the glass is not going to expand. It's going to take the volume. The water is going to fill up the volume of the cup. The glass is not going to, the cup, the glass, whatever, is not going to expand. So with the universe, the problem with the universe bouncing back and forth, opening, I'm using those terms just so you can get a mental picture. It's not really opening and close, but the problem with that is that as it bounces, or how the physicists call it, it's supposed to get longer or have more volume. And I use those words so you can get, the image of it, volume or whatever. And that will contradict the laws of physics because the universe has a specific sum of what it contains. There cannot be any more or any less of it, just like with the water inside a glass. You can only fill that glass to a certain amount. Any more will overflow it, and any less, you're not filling up the glass. So there's no way the universe could be bouncing back and forth eternally, because then that means the laws of physics are wrong. Newton screwed up, somebody screwed up along the way. So that really doesn't work. Then another interesting thing that I found out, as I was learning physics and preparing for my degree, was that we believe in the cosmic inflation, the Big Bang theory, that everything came to be from a singularity. It exploded into existence. And again, I used the word exploded just for the sake of language, because it really didn't explode. But the first particles to come to be were photons. Those were the first particles that came from when the Big Bang happened. Now, what are photons? Light. And it's interesting because, the book of Genesis, what's the first thing God says? Let there be light. And ironically, based on the physics that we know now, that's exactly what happened. Let there be light. Let there be photons. If the person who wrote the book of Genesis knew physics, he probably would have wrote that, or she would have wrote that. Let there be photons, because that's exactly what happened. Photons were the first particles to appear when the Big Bang took shape, or however you want to describe it. Then from there, that's when the energy started to settle, started to collect, nebulas were formed, stars were formed, and planets and all that. And one might say, well, that happened randomly. You don't need a God for that. But the interesting thing with that, and the problem I had with that as I was an atheist, was that this universe is mathematical. For some reason, math works perfectly with this universe. And mathematics is something that's not innate to the universe. You cannot grow mathematics from the ground. It doesn't appear in space and time, yet it's incorporated in space and time. The concept of mathematics comes from intelligence, from a human mind. We create equations. We created the numbers, the Arabic numbers, in order to apply, and the Greek letters in order to apply to formulas. We did that. But the substance itself of mathematics is inbred, for the lack of a better term, in the universe. And we could apply these symbols to it, and it works perfectly. That's why we could figure out the Big Bang. We could figure out the distance between this and that. We could figure out the vibrations within particles. We could figure out the spins and gluons and quarks and things like that, because mathematics works with it. Then you go back to the whole idea that mathematics can only derive from of intelligence. A brain can figure it out. A rock cannot figure out calculus. A dog cannot figure out calculus. It needs something like our brains in order to figure out mathematics, to apply equations into space, time, and matter. Now, in light of the universe being mathematical from the very beginning, and in light of mathematics being the peak of rationality and being something that comes from intelligence, if, for example, one of the gravitational constants, and the gravitational constant is what? The rule of gravity in a specific region of space or point in space. That's what we mean by gravitational constant. If a gravitational constant was off by 1 part in 10 to the 120th power, which is by astronomical standards not a very big number. If it was just off by a little bit, then the gravity would be off. And what will happen? Matter would just blow apart. And then what will happen? The universe will collapse on itself. Only for that little fraction, miscalculation of the gravitational constant, or what holds this universe, holds your body together, the room behind you, my body, the room where I'm at, this computer, everything. If the gravitational constant of the particles in these things was off by just 1 part in 10 of 120th power, we wouldn't be here. It would just dissipate. Everything would just dissipate. And again, all of this is mathematical. It's mathematics. And in light of mathematics being something that's intelligence, that comes from the intelligence, is the peak of rationality, it's very difficult to support an atheist position that there cannot be a God or whatnot, because then you have the problem of explaining, why does the mathematics work? Why is this set to certain parameters, this mathematics of the universe? And in light of mathematics being something, the product of an intelligent mind, because again, a rock cannot produce mathematics. A plant cannot produce mathematics. It has to be a conscious, intelligent mind.
And mathematics is always produced by humans. God didn't produce any. I mean, in the universe, the fact that we measure things and we have set theories, these are all human concepts that we've created to understand our universe. They work because we created them, and the universe is consistent with itself. There's no God required for that to be true.
Yeah, but the problem is that you can't support that. You're just basing that off of speculation.
Right, but there's
Because
nothing.
again, like I told you in the beginning,
There's nothing contradictory about that. There's nothing problematic with just saying that mathematics are human concepts and constructs that we use to observe the universe and measure the universe, and that they work because the universe is consistent with itself as a brute fact of the universe. That works, and it explains how math can work in a universe without God. So this idea that the universe seems intelligible, therefore God is defeated by that, or at least rebutted by that. It doesn't mean that God doesn't exist, but it does mean that atheism again becomes a rational point of view. in light of your argument against it.
No, but you insinuated that human beings made mathematics, and what I'm telling you is that what we did was we found a language that we use to describe what's already there. Remember, that's the point that you're missing. It was already there. Granted, it wasn't listed in equations and whatnot, but the concept of the universe, the mathematical concepts that we could apply human language to was already there. And that requires
the fact that a circumference is the fact that a circumference of a circle is 3.14, so on, the length of the diameter is true, regardless or whether or not we produce math show it. Yeah, that's true. But that, again, is just a brute fact of the universe. The universe is consistent with itself. That doesn't mean that a God exists.
Yeah, but you fail to really provide evidence of that. That's the problem. It's not convincing.
I don't need to provide. I don't need to provide evidence for it.
And in light
I don't need to
of
provide
the way
evidence.
it's set up, that's not really possible.
Sure, it is. It's coherent and it makes sense, and I don't really need to provide evidence for it. It's a rebuttal to your position. It's a possible explanation for why math works, in response to your argument against atheism. And because it works, it's a decent rebuttal. It doesn't mean that God doesn't exist, but it means that atheism, in response to your argument against it, is still rational.
Well, you keep saying that doesn't mean that God doesn't exist, but yet you say that God's not needed. You're contradicting.
God isn't needed to explain the rationality of the universe. There are other arguments that can go further to show that God doesn't exist, but those are different arguments.
Well, to date, no argument has really proven that God does not exist, because again,
which ones are you familiar with?
The mathematics of the universe, we can understand it because it was already there.
Which you say that no argument has come out showing that God doesn't exist. Which ones are you familiar with?
What was that? Repeat that again.
You said that there has been no argument that has came out that shows that God doesn't exist. Which ones are you familiar with?
Well, just different random ones that different atheists try to use to, like the one you're using now. You pretty much.
Well, that's what I'm using now is not an argument for atheism.
With an unconscious agency. That's pretty much what you're doing.
No. You said that there has been no good argument against the existence of God or for atheism, and I'm asking you which ones are you familiar with? I've yet to present one.
Well, let's start with the one you're using now.
I'm not using one.
Agency.
I'm not using one. The argument I gave is not an argument for positive atheism or that shows that God doesn't exist. It's an argument. It's a rebuttal to your argument. It's not an argument.
It's used as an argument, pretty much stating that the universe created itself. It has no need for a God.
I said nothing of the sort. I said the universe is intelligible and that's explainable without a God.
Okay, listen to the word that you're using, intelligible.
Mm-hmm.
And intelligence exists by itself.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm an intelligence. You're an intelligence. We don't exist by ourselves.
But you just said the universe is intelligible.
How intelligible, not an intelligence. Intelligible means we can discover things about it. It makes sense. It's consistent with itself.
Okay, you keep using the word consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate on that.
Something that's consistent is doesn't contradict itself.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that contradict itself, but that's a whole physics lesson. As it stands, physicists argue.
I'm not a physicalist.
There's a lot of things out there that still physicists scratch their heads on. Luckily, they found the Higgs boson, which settles a little bit, but still.
Intelligible doesn't mean fully known. Intelligible means we can discover things about it, and it's consistent with itself. Just like we don't know everything about the assassination of JFK, right? We might not. There are things that happen on the Zapruder film that we currently don't know. That doesn't mean that they're not discoverable or knowable, or that the assassination of JFK is non-intelligible. It's perfectly intelligible, though we don't know everything about it.
Okay, but still, the fact that you're able to know about it is the point that I'm making. Is that the conception of mathematics is there. All we did is just apply language to it so that we can understand it. but it was already there. The mathematics is already there. Think of
Well,
it as the universe being a operating system. I'm not a computer programmer, but software engineers use computer codes and things like that in order to make the operating system work, algorithms and so forth. That's pretty much what exists in the universe. If you want to call it algorithms in a sense, I'm just using those words just to paint the picture. But
there are things that are true.
all we
about
did was just apply language to these things.
Right. There are things about that are true about geometry, and they're always true about geometry. The problem is, I mean, if that's the way you want to go, then it's kind of actually more of a problem than you, because there are really no true things about, say, geometry or calculus that are actually fully true in the real world. There's no perfect circle. There's nothing in the universe that, if you actually measured it, is there's no structure of the universe that's diameter really is 3.14, or the circumference is actually 3.14 times the diameter. There's going to be slight problems. That's only true in this mathematical world of perfect geometry that doesn't exist in physicality.
Well, actually, it does. I mean, that's where we could apply the formula to things in space and time, because it does work. But again, you're not really addressing the point as to why the mathematics exists there. Because remember, we're talking about randomness.
What I'm saying is, it's not a perfect analogy to the physical world, because in geometry, like Euclidean geometry doesn't work out in the real world. It doesn't. You can measure any circle you want, and if you had perfect measuring tools, you wouldn't get the perfect results that you get in mathematics.
Well, I mean,
it might be true on the quantum scale, but it's not true on the large scale.
Well, if we couldn't get the perfect results, then how are we able to build anything? So clearly, mathematics works.
Enough. Look, math works to a certain extent. I'm not saying that math doesn't work. What I'm saying is, the mathematics of, say, pi, is the example I keep going to, isn't true in the real world. If you looked at any planet in the universe and actually flattened it and measured its diameter and its circumference, you wouldn't get exactly pi. But in Euclidean geometry, you would, because Euclidean geometry is pure math.
Pi is different.
This is why Plato came up with,
in order to get a close estimate. But it's pretty accurate. It's not really totally off. It's probably off for 1/10 of a degree or so, but it's not really off. It's pretty accurate enough that we could apply it to a planet or something that's spherical, if we see it as something that's flat, like you said. But again, you're not really addressing how God is not necessary for the mathematical structure of the universe. Because that's like saying that a computer doesn't need a designer, that it just came to me just for the mere fact that it is. That's what you're telling me. And that's not very convincing.
I don't see the universe as a computer. I don't know why. I don't see the analogy. I don't see why. I fail to see why it's required for a god to create a world that's coherent and intelligible. Why couldn't it just be a brute fact about the universe that it's intelligible and self-consistent? It seems to me that logic dictates that anything would be consistent with itself. The fact that the universe is consistent with itself and therefore intelligible seems a product of logic, not God.
Well, the problem with that is that you're assuming that the universe has contingency, and it does not. The universe has no contingency. It does not exist within themselves. It is dependent on a factor that we still do not know. That's why your argument fails, your rebuttal fails, because you assume that the universe has is contingent in itself, and it's not.
I didn't say the universe is contingent on anything.
What was that?
I didn't say the universe was contingent.
You say that the universe is consistent in itself. I said that's not possible.
Consistency isn't the same thing as contingency.
It has no contingency.
I don't see how that follows. There are lots of things that are contingent that are coherent.
No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. Contingency meaning that it doesn't exist within itself. It doesn't depend on itself for existence.
No, that's
The
exactly what
universe does not
contingent
depend
means.
on itself for existence.
Contingent means it's contingent on something else. It relies on
Exactly.
something else, not necessarily for its existence, but for its coherency or something like that. Non-contingent would be something necessary.
Well, that's what I mean. Is that the universe is dependent on a factor in order to exist. We haven't found that yet. No physicist has found that yet. As a matter of fact, we don't know what occurred about 12 to 7 seconds before the Big Bang.
Yeah,
All
I'm
that
not
we
sure.
can see
Well,
are the
what would
photons
happen
and whatever else I described.
what happened before Planck time in the Big Bang is still part of the universe. So it wouldn't be the universe contingent on whatever happens before Planck time. That would be the universe is contingent on itself, or even possibly necessary. I haven't heard any argument from you so far that shows the universe is contingent on anything. But even if it was, I often take the tact in cosmological arguments to say that, yeah, sure, the universe might be contingent on something else. There might be something that created the universe. That's not God. It's not a personal creator agent. It's some thing, concept even, that created the universe. It's not God.
But how will you know that? How will you prove that?
I don't need to prove it. It's a logically consistent rebuttal to
Oh,
the claim.
you have to prove it,
No, you
because
don't.
how would I believe you?
You don't have to believe me, but the reason that you believe me is because it's consistent with the claim that if you need an explanation for what the universe is contingent on, you can provide something that's minimally contingent, something that's minimally necessary to create a universe, and that would be rational to accept. And you don't need a god to create a universe. You just need something minimally necessary to create a universe, and that minimally necessary
Well,
thing
how do
doesn't
you know that you don't need a God? That's what you're not addressing.
because
That's like saying that you don't need lava to create a rock. I mean,
you
how
don't.
would you know that
Lots
if
of
you
rocks
weren't
are
aware
made
of
with
lava?
Well, it's a bad analogy because lots of rocks are made not without lava. Only igneous rocks are lava.
Well, that's what I mean. You can always trace it back to a specific cause.
I think it's igneous. I'll look it up.
And the reason why you could trace it back to a specific cause is because you know of it. But you're claiming that God's not necessary. In order for you to say that, you will need to know what caused the universe.
No, you don't.
And we don't know. Nobody
No, you
knows.
really don't.
So
You
you're
really
claiming
don't.
knowledge that not even Neil
Well,
deGrasse Tyson has.
that's like saying. I mean, that's like saying that the person that committed this murder has a mustache and a beard and a hat and all these other things that aren't necessary to commit a murder, right? Let's say that the body had to be dragged a certain amount of way. All you know then is that the person has to be strong enough to carry the body. You don't need what's not necessary is the person wears a hat and the person has a beard and the person has a mustache. So adding those extra factors just gets sliced off by Occam's razor. Just like the answer to these cosmological questions saying that, oh, there could be a necessary thing that created a universe that's not quite God, that has all the necessary qualifications to create a universe and nothing extra. So that's perfectly rational, and it's a perfectly rational rebuttal to certain cosmological arguments like Kalam.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that can you hear me? Okay, the problem with that is that you're substituting the agency from a conscious agency, which is what I'm presenting, to an unconscious one. That's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that it was a conscious agency of mind, and you're just saying it's an unconscious agency.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
Occam's razor.
You're not providing any
right. Unless you could prove that it has to be conscious. Occam's razor slices off all unnecessary assumptions that you make, like the entity has to be conscious to create a universe.
Well, I say conscious for the mere fact that it's mathematics, and like you said before, human beings created the mathematical language. And what is a human being? A conscious being. So if the universe is mathematical and mathematical language comes from a human being and a human being is conscious, then it follows that whatever created the universe in its mathematical form is conscious and aware and able to apply mathematics into the universe.
No. It's just not necessary for something that exists that has certain mathematical qualities to have been created by something that knows mathematics. There are lots of things that come into existence that are mathematical that don't seem to have any kind of consciousness behind them, and is totally logically coherent for a universe to exist that's mathematically consistent
Well, name one.
with itself. Huh? Well, if I name something in the actual universe that does that, I'd be begging the question. So instead, I'm moving the tack to say there's nothing incoherent about a universe that obeys mathematical laws that wasn't created by an intelligent agency.
But then you run into the problem with describing it as mathematical, because mathematics can only come from a rational mind. You see what I mean?
Doing mathematics comes from something with a rational mind, but the fact that something's mathematical doesn't necessarily. I've heard no argument from you that shows that something that obeys mathematical equations has to be created by something that understands math. I'm not
gave you one with the gravitational constant.
The gravitation,
and then you also run into the problem with randomness. With suppose, let's say I was an atheist right now, and I would say that the universe was created by chance. Everything came to being. It became into the consistency that it is now via randomness. It just happened to form that way. It had no need for a mind or logos or whatever you want to call it. Now the problem with that is that randomness is a product of time, and time is randomness is a product of probability. Probability is the product of time. Now the problem with saying that the universe just happened to come together the way it did randomly, there was nobody pushing buttons or anything to set it up that way. It just happened randomly. Since randomness comes from probability comes from time. The problem is that time did not exist before the Big Bang. So it's impossible for randomness to take hold in an environment, in a realm where time does not exist.
Yeah, I could say the same thing about consciousness. Consciousness doesn't exist outside of time either. To be conscious, you have to be conscious of something. You have to have thoughts that precede other thoughts. And God doesn't have that before the Big Bang, before he created time, or
well,
if he
exists outside of time. We're talking about a human consciousness, but we're not talking about a human being. We're talking about a different being that exists on a different level. So the consciousness
I'm not talking about human.
Not necessarily the consciousness that you and I exhibit.
I'm not talking about human consciousness. I'm talking about consciousness. The concept of consciousness. I fail to see how it can happen without. I mean, you're talking about a conscious being that has no time for thoughts, no time for one thought to precede another. He's conscious of nothing because nothing exists. In what sense is this being conscious then? In what sense is this being rational if he can't have a thought preceding another to come to rational conclusions, like I ought to create a universe?
Well, because the consciousness that we were speaking about is on a different level. It's not what we're used to here.
Well, that doesn't.
I mean, even in our human state, we're not able to perceive everything. As a matter of fact, you're holding that cigarette right now. You're not really holding it.
But you're not appealing to God's. Appealing to God's mystery doesn't answer. Appealing to God's mystery doesn't really answer the question. You could do that with anything. I mean, any problem that I present you with God, you could say, well, we don't fully know God, therefore we can't really talk about these things. But I think we can. I think that there are certain things that we would expect to see if God exists, and certain things that God being rational and understandable in certain ways.
I'm not saying that we can't fully talk about it. I'm just saying that you have to take into account that you're dealing with an entity that's not us, that's not.
I understand that,
our experiences, to our way of
existing. But we are talking about consciousness.
Take that into account,
and we can understand what right. But we understand what consciousness is, and you're saying this being
in the human sense. Well, actually, we really don't understand consciousness now, because there's so many new studies coming out that we really don't understand what consciousness is.
Whether it be human,
so
divine,
consciousness exists
without
a neurological standpoint.
What I'm saying is, I've presented this argument that God, if he exists outside of time, can't be conscious, because consciousness requires a rational consciousness definitely requires thoughts to precede others, so he can come to logical conclusions, and something to be conscious of. And a God that exists without anything else in the universe and without any time can't have thoughts precede other thoughts. What is a consciousness with no thoughts?
Okay, but again, you're understanding consciousness the way we do it. You have
Okay,
to
so
remember
explain to me
certain
how there
things.
could be a okay,
We're
fine.
dealing with a
Explain to me
being
how.
that's beyond space and time.
So you're saying that
We don't
consciousness,
know what this being is.
right?
If, for the sake of word, let's use heaven. Just for the sake of argument, let's use the word heaven. This being obviously is somewhere, even though the universe is not there.
No, he's not.
If this being exists in that realm, obviously it exists by different rules, different laws that do not govern us here, because we exist, we obey our molecules and
I'm not talking.
particles
My
obey
argument
certain
does not.
laws here in this
My argument.
universe.
My
But we
argument
can't
doesn't.
assume that something outside this universe obeys these laws that is not a part of.
My argument does not at all rely on physicality, right? I'm totally okay with disembodied, non-physical minds. That's something that can happen. I have no problem with that. There's no argument that I can think of that can say that every mind has to be physical. I'm totally okay with that. My problem with God is I don't know how consciousness works without time. And all you're really saying is, well, we don't really know. God's greater than our physical universe. But I'm not appealing to any kind of physical laws about minds. I'm asking you what is the consciousness of a mind with no thoughts and nothing to be conscious of?
Well, I mean, how would you know it's not conscious of anything? Like I said, this
What is
being
there to be conscious of?
in another realm. So it's obviously conscious of something. If it had the ability to think of the universe, the human species, etc., that obviously is conscious of something.
Conscious of what?
Well, obviously, creation created the universe if that really happened.
Right.
Again, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just trying to get a discussion going.
I'm still without any explanation of what God can possibly be conscious of, and what he could possibly, and how he can come to rational conclusions without time for one thought to precede another.
Well, because he will naturally exist in a different realm. That's not what we're in now that we
Right.
call the universe.
He exists in a realm where consciousness is impossible, is what my argument.
Or that it could be a different state of consciousness.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, unless you're defining consciousness as something else, consciousness is a state of being where you could have internal thoughts about things, and in a rational consciousness is one where you have to have some thoughts precede others so you can come to rational conclusions. I don't see how God can come to rational conclusions like I ought to create a universe without time for one thought to precede another. There's another problem, which is the impossibility of ex nihilo creation in general. God can't create a universe because it's logically coherent to act upon a thing prior to its existence.
Okay, act upon a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, elaborate on that. What do you mean by that?
Let's just take you, for example, right? You couldn't act upon a kickball that doesn't exist, right?
Okay, but the problem with that is that you're assuming that God has to obey the laws that we obey.
No.
The Christianity, Catholicism in particular, doesn't believe in that type of a God. We don't believe in
No, these
aren't.
This isn't a physical law. This
part
is
of the universe. This being
this isn't.
is
No.
something outside.
No.
So he, she, it, whatever you want to call or describe this being, is not subject.
I'm not.
Physics like we.
I'm not.
It's not subject.
You're not listening. I'm not relying.
After. That's why. What's his name? Moses. When Moses asked God, like, "Who am I going to tell these people you are? Like, who the hell sent me?" He
there's
said,
no law.
"I am sent you." Now that doesn't mean that that's God's name. God was just describing himself. I am, meaning he's the eternal one. He was just always there.
I understand that he's eternal, but if God,
obviously this concept is going to be difficult for anybody to understand, because how can you understand eternity?
God is logical, right? Oh, I'm not talking about eternity anymore. God is logical, right?
Yes.
Right. He doesn't disobey the laws of logic.
He doesn't disobey the laws of logic, but he's not subject to that either.
Sure, fine. I'm okay with that. If he doesn't disobey the laws of logic, then he doesn't create a universe, because there's, unless you can find a way around God acting upon something prior to its existence. If something doesn't exist, it can't be acted upon. There's no property of something that doesn't exist to be acted upon. So God, just like you, can't kick a non-existent kickball. He can't act upon a kickball prior to its existence. And God can't create a universe that doesn't exist yet.
First he would have to create the kickball to kick it.
Well, he can't, because creation is acting upon the thing that doesn't exist.
Yeah, but the act in this case is creating it, not kicking it.
No, but he can't do that because he can't act upon it before it exists.
Okay, the problem here is that, like I said, you're trying to put God on a human level, and that happens a lot with atheists. Is that you try to apply the rules that govern us as human beings.
Nope. Again, this is
a being that doesn't.
This is a logical
problem. It's not restricted to space and time.
A does not exist, right? So therefore, no logical agent, no agent that is either bound by or wouldn't violate the laws of logic can act upon A if it doesn't exist. Yet you're saying that God did act upon nothing to create something.
Yeah, because this being exists on a different level. That's why we call this being omniscient, all-knowing, because this being behaves on a different level that we're not used to it, and nobody can really explain because we never experienced it ourselves.
I'm not holding God to any kind of physical law here. I'm not saying that God can't create something ex nihilo because I can't and I can't imagine it. I'm saying that God can't act upon things that don't exist because that's a logical contradiction. Things that don't exist can't be acted upon by definition.
Okay, then you have to explain what does it mean not to exist.
I'm okay, for example, if God existed in a realm of ethereal chaos, of non-physical material, right? That he took that non-physical material and made a universe, a physical universe out of it. I'm okay with that, but that's not what the God of Christianity did. The God of Christianity created the universe ex nihilo, out of no material.
Yes, because this being is capable of doing that. That's why he's called God.
But he's not, because he has to act upon something prior to its existence, and God cannot act upon something prior to its own existence. If it doesn't exist, it can't be acted upon by definition.
But you have to remember that God is the cause for it to exist. And Pope Benedict XVI went as far as to say that the universe itself is a thought of God. And I believe Aristotle, either Aristotle, I forgot, Aristotle or Plato, one of them, said the same thing, that the universe, everything is actually the thought of the logos. An idea, we're a dream, so to speak, of this logos. So again, the problem is that you can't apply what we understand, what we think, or what we know so far to this being that exists. That's I tried to apply the way our bodies behave to that of a fish. A fish exists in a whole different realm, in water. We do not. So we cannot impose the way we exist on land to a creature that exists in the water under different conditions.
I'm arguing against God from purely philosophical and logical grounds. And physicality plays no part in it, except for where physicality is, say, necessary for consciousness. It seems like physicality might be some form of physicality, like time, seems necessary for consciousness, and some kind of material seems necessary to be acted upon to create anything.
Okay, I'm going to play the devil's advocate for a bit. Okay, you keep saying about time and consciousness. You seem to be linking them. What about people that are comatose? And like one guy that I read about, that he was in a coma, and he woke up after 20 so years, and he still thought that Ronald Reagan was the president. Obviously, he was unconscious, but not completely unconscious, because people that are in comatose still are aware of their surroundings. We learned recently in the study that they're not completely shut out from the rest of the world. And how can you reconcile that with the idea that consciousness and time are related? Because obviously this person was aware of his surroundings and whatnot. But when he woke up from this coma, he thought that he was in 1980 something, where Reagan was the president.
I don't see how that's a problem. He exists in time and therefore can have thoughts preceding other thoughts and could be unaware of things that are happening in the world, like Ronald Reagan is no longer president. Seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, but time was still going on. It didn't stop for him.
Right.
Yeah, he thought
Because time didn't
stopped.
stop, while he's out, he could have thoughts preceding other thoughts.
But you see the problem right there. You're giving a leeway to this man in the comatose, but not for God. See what I
Because
mean?
the man who's comatose exists in time. He could have thoughts preceding other thoughts. God can't because he exists outside of time.
Yeah, but if this man obviously was not having thought preceding other thoughts, because he woke up with the memories from the moment he became comatose. Like if it never happened, he just woke up at that moment believing that what happened. So
Sure.
obviously
So,
time
but
didn't
that doesn't
pass for
mean that
him.
he can't have thoughts preceding other thoughts while he's otherwise unconscious. The other possible explanation for this is he didn't have thoughts preceding other thoughts. He wasn't conscious when he was comatose, and now he is conscious.
But we now know today that there is consciousness. It's not complete, but there is consciousness. It's comatose. I wrote
Okay,
a
and
blog post on this.
he exists in time, so he could have consciousness. There's no problem with that. God doesn't exist within time, so God can't have that kind of consciousness. I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, but then you fail to understand that he's not in this realm. He operates on a different realm.
Right, he exists in a realm where consciousness can't exist because he can't have thoughts precede other thoughts.
Yeah, but you assume that.
Right, because there's no defeater. I've been presented with no defeater against it. It seems to be a problem for consciousness when you can't have thoughts preceding other thoughts.
In this realm, but we don't know about any other realms out there.
No. Any time where you have a thought preceding another thought, you have time. That's what time is. That things precede other things. There's a linear
Yeah, but
progression of temporality. Now, what you're saying, now, if God exists in a realm with time, then God can have consciousness. But then he would exist in the realm with time. He wouldn't be timeless.
yeah, but the problem with that is that we perceive time in the way the laws of physics sets it up now.
Mm-hmm.
God is on a different level, like I said, a different realm. So it's not going to be the same thing for this being. So you can't apply how we perceive time here on Earth or in this universe to something that's outside or supposedly outside this universe, because it doesn't follow the same rules.
That's exactly my point.
The-
Is God? If God exists in a realm with no temporality, he can't have thoughts preceding other thoughts. If you can't have thoughts preceding other thoughts, you can't be conscious.
In this universe, that applies.
No,
Hold on one
in the
second.
sense of what makes sense for consciousness. Consciousness are things that think, that have rational consciousness. Consciousnesses are beings that can take previous thoughts with previous thoughts and come to rational conclusions about them. You can't come to rational conclusions about other thoughts if you don't have preceding thoughts. You could say that God exists in another realm, and that's fine. But if you're saying that he have thoughts that preceding other thoughts, then he exists in a time, in a place where there's some kind of temporality, and he's not timeless. You just can't have it both ways. He either exists in time and he has thoughts preceding other thoughts, or he doesn't exist in time where he can't have thoughts preceding other thoughts. And you have to explain to me how a being could be conscious if he doesn't have thoughts preceding other thoughts. Do you think that a conscious thing could have thoughts non-preceding other thoughts? If I went outside of time and I no longer could have preceding thoughts, if I was stuck with consciousness of nothing and no thoughts preceding other thoughts, would I be conscious? Could anything be conscious without thoughts preceding other thoughts? I say no. And without any kind of explanation or rebuttal against it, I'm going to stick by that. I'm going to get a water. It'll take me 2 seconds.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
Back.
Got a text I had to answer quickly right there. Just asking me what I was going to do later, but I had to quickly. Um, Let me just quickly read to you something that Carl Sagan. Am I mute here? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Something that Carl Sagan said in an interview. And as soon as my screen, um, this thing is so slow. All right. Carl Sagan, he said, this is from Conversations with Carl Sagan, page 70. He wrote, he said, quote, an atheist is someone who is certain that God does not exist, someone who has compelling evidence against the existence of God. I know of no such compelling evidence, because God can be relegated to remote times and places and to ultimate causes. We will have to know a great deal more about the universe than we do now to be sure that no such God exists. End quote. What do you think about his words?
I think Carl Sagan wasn't a philosopher.
That's all?
Yeah, I don't agree with him. I think he's wrong. I think that there are ways to say that God doesn't exist. At least certain types of gods. Like there's this Christian meme on Google Plus a second ago, not a second ago, like a week ago or so. I don't remember. And somebody posted it, and they said it was a faux conversation with an agnostic. The agnostic claims to know that God doesn't exist. No, not to know God doesn't exist, to not know that God exists, right? I don't know that God exists, says the agnostic. The Christian says, oh, well, God claims that everyone knows he exists. In other words, the agnostic claims to know, since he's somebody who claims to not know that God exists, he has to claim to know that the God that is revealed to all people doesn't exist because he doesn't know he is. So agnostics should all be atheists in that sense. If God, the God of theism, is a being that is known by all, then the fact that agnostics exist, well, there shouldn't be any agnostics, right? The agnostics should know that no God that is revealed to all humans exists. And in that sense, that God doesn't exist.
In light of that, and also in light of what Carl Sagan said in this interview, how can an atheist positively show that God is not necessary? Because
no, it's
no one
worse
has
than
really
that.
been able to do that.
It's not just that God is not necessary. If you think that God is known to all humans, that God doesn't exist. I don't know that God exists. Because I don't know that God exists, I have evidence against the God that is revealed to all humans.
Yeah, but that evidence is very weak. It's not. That's why atheism has difficulty. What do you call it? There was a study a while ago saying that atheism has the lowest retention level because it doesn't really hold ground.
Except
See,
for
with
it does.
theism, they could come up with all kinds of ideas to defend God, all kinds of ideas, and you see William Lane Craig and all these people. They argue till they turn blue, all these different ideas. But when it comes to atheism, like I said before, they just switch the agency from conscious agency to an unconscious agency, and it's not really compelling. That's why Carl Sagan said he hasn't seen anything compelling, and I agree with him. There is nothing compelling.
Carl Sagan was a bit of an kindergarten kind of atheist. I mean, he's a great science communicator, but him and Stephen Jay Gould and Richard Dawkins, not very good atheists. I'm just not convinced by his conclusion that because we haven't looked in every corner, that means that God exists. Because we could actually look at the universe that God supposedly created and determine that it wasn't created by God. There are things that we can know, like, for example, the God of theism. Every theist would defend the claim that God revealed himself to all people. All right. So if there are people that don't know that God exists, then the God of theism.
Okay, but see the problems that excuse me, the problems that I see with that, just pretending to be a skeptic right now. If I was talking to you as a skeptic trying to learn about atheism, the problem that I would see is that, one, we don't know everything about the universe. Now, just because we could point the Hubble here and there and take pictures doesn't mean we know about what's over there.
I never said we did.
So we cannot really state that, okay, we took a picture of it, there's no God. We can't really do that.
I
scratch the surface.
I said that, right? I'm that is perfectly implied in my previous statement. We don't have to look over under every rock in the universe to prove that God doesn't exist, because God wouldn't live under a rock. Right? But there are things that we can determine about the universe that would be necessary, that if a God did exist, that we could see aren't true. Like the problem of evil does a pretty good job of this, though it's not my favorite argument. The problem of divine hiddenness does this, which I think is a decent argument. The argument from fine-tuning against God does this in a fun way. The problem of non-God objects does this.
Okay, but I mean, to me, it seems like a cop-out, really, because, see, if let's say you wanted to convert the Pope to atheism, you will have to make one hell of an argument in order to switch his mind. Or Pope Benedict XVI, you will have to make one hell of an argument in order to get Pope XVI to become an atheist.
That's absurd. So first of all, it's not a cop-out. I think that atheists that want to say that God is unfalsifiable and I just don't have any good reasons to believe in God, that's a cop-out. That's a cop-out to not give any evidence for positive atheism. That's the cop-out. I'm not presenting any cop-out. I'm saying we do have a burden of proof. If you're an atheist, you should be able to at least show that you ought not believe in God. And I'm taking on that burden of proof. There's no cop-out there, number one. Number two, it also doesn't follow that just because there are rational arguments for something, that everybody that you tell this to are going to be convinced by the rational argument. People aren't always convinced by rational arguments. Just because you can prove X doesn't mean that when I tell you, or when I prove X, that you will accept it. They're perfectly rational arguments that people don't accept.
But the thing is that at least you have something to stand upon. Whereas atheism, what I've been saying so far is not really convincing me.
Right, and I've already addressed
physics and so forth. I mean,
you think you have rational
arguments. There's a possibility that the universe created itself, but it's highly improbable from the way we understand it now.
You have arguments that you believe are rational that atheists don't accept. Yet when I say that I have rational arguments, your response is, well, they're not going to convince everybody, therefore what, they're not rational or they're not good? I'm
not saying they're not rational, I'm just saying they're not convincing. Because you're really just saying the universe created itself. That's not really an answer.
Saying, no, I said nothing of the sort. As a matter of fact, my response to your kind of cosmological argument was very opposite, that there could be a necessary entity that is not a consciousness that created the universe. It's not the universe creating itself.
So you're open to the idea?
To what idea?
That a conscious agency happened to create the universe.
Yeah, I'm open. My primary concern is what's true. If God exists, I want to know it. But what I just said wasn't any kind of idea. Wasn't that I wasn't saying that in my previous statement. I wasn't saying that I'm open to it. Or my previous statement was that I don't necessarily believe the universe created itself. My response to many cosmological arguments is there could be a necessary entity that's not conscious, that's not God, that created the universe. That's not the universe creating itself, and it's also not God.
Okay, I see what you mean, but again, playing the devil's advocate, God is just a word that we use to describe this being. I mean, this being has different names that people had called him, her, it throughout the centuries. So, if by the understanding that we have of this word, God, then if it did create the universe, then that word would apply, whether conscious or unconscious. Because
No,
again, the word God is just a word that we made up to
no, I
describe a supreme being.
no. I don't accept that. I think that I take the classical philosophical stance that God is a necessary, all powerful being that created the universe, and personal being, by the way, that created the universe. He has a consciousness. It has, things that it wants to do and does, and he's rational and can think. When you subtract any of these from quote unquote God, it's no longer God. I mean, now we're just playing games like saying, oh, this, well, I believe God exists because this is God. It's just a word, right? So this water bottle is God. Well, no, this water bottle doesn't have
Well,
the
I mean, man
properties
has done that
of
throughout the
classical
centuries.
theism.
I mean, they made statues into gods. They thought thunder was God. They thought rain was God. Man has always
God's
done that. Man has always
God's
seen something that's
yes,
more powerful than him, or that's
God's
more perceived
yes,
as more powerful as God,
right.
God.
No, fine. Yes, I'm not arguing against totems, right? What I'm arguing against is the classical. The only really form of God that makes sense, is defendable, and actually means anything, right? The idea of a personal agent and personal necessary agent that created the universe and is all powerful. If we're not talking about that, we're not talking about anything that really matters, right? We're not talking about a super powerful agent that sits atop of a mountain and throws lightning bolts at people. I wouldn't. That's not the God of classical theism.
Okay, it's not the God of classical theism, but it was an attempt to define God. Because again, God has been defined based on culture and whatnot. And I mean, I could get into that with the Old Testament, God, Yahweh, and all that stuff, but we don't have enough time. But anyhow, I have to let you go because it's getting a bit late and I have to finish this blog post before the morning so that people have something to read. Um, hold that thought, hopefully, for the next time where you're able to participate. We'll continue there, we could start talking about something else. And hopefully, other people will join in because I would love to hear other perspectives because I'm sure there's other atheists out there who think differently, might say something that might contradict what you think. And just that allows me to bring up questions to that person or other people and just like create something new completely. So, thank you. Sorry for cutting it short. Actually, we did talk for quite a while, but I kept seeing my counter here, like 3 or 4 people kept viewing it on and off. But hopefully, by them viewing this, they could see that I'm not this jerk that they think I am. Even though I do come across as a Donald Trump on Google Plus, but I'm not like that, as you saw. I just genuinely want to discuss things, have give atheists a free, open platform to discuss, bring up things, whatever. And again, like I said, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. I just want to hear what you got to say, and then I'll just steer it wherever I think we should go, and and then just let the audience listen to it and get whatever they want to get out of it. That's what I want to do. I'm not here to convert anybody. Just make it that clear. So, as a matter of fact, I even said some things that are not Catholic doctrine. So, and the Catholics hearing me out there, I'm not a heretic or anything, just letting you know. It's just for the sake of dialogue that I bring up certain things. But anyhow, thank you for participating, and hopefully you get to join next time. And if you could manage to convince some of the other people to come on, and hopefully they're not brainwashed by the lies being propagated about me out there. But as you saw, it was no big deal. Nobody died. Nobody got cursed out. There was no fight. Nothing. It's just a simple conversation. So again, thanks for participating and enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
Okay, bye now.